Got it. Got it. Right. T minus 15 seconds. Prepare for launch. Let's go. Come on, do the countdown. Let's get that countdown. Let's go. 4. Here we go. Let's do this. All right, here we go. Mahalo, everyone, for joining us and returning back from our little lunch break. At this time, I'd like to begin the second half of our BNF meeting. And this is going to be about the upcoming budget briefing that we're going to have. At this time, I'd like to first acknowledge our incredible staff. Over the past 3 months, I've had a chance to meet weekly with our CEO, our CFO, our COO, and of course, our Grace Chen, who's our accounting director. And they've all been amazing. It helped me to open up my eyes to see what it takes to make OHA run. It's all about the money, and it's our beneficiary monies. And basically, these monies are utilized to implement so that we are able to bring the programs that we are set up to do for you, so that we can see to it that our people will be able to improve their living conditions, to improve their lives from education, housing, jobs, and so forth. We have so much that that we're going to be sharing today during this briefing. But first and foremost, again, a big, huge mahalo to CEO Stacy and your staff. You guys have just been amazing, and I tell you this much: it has given me a greater appreciation for the work that you folks do, and that our trustees will have an opportunity to look into the intricacies of how our budget is formed and how it's going to relate to all of you. So take note, this is going to be exciting. There's so much to learn today. This is a first of its kind because it was designed to support the Board of Trustees in making informed decisions as we work to finalize our budget, our biennium budget for fiscal year 26-27. And OHA's executive leadership team, our department heads, all of our division directors and staff, this is a wonderful opportunity to present. Each of them will present and showcase their PIA work and discuss budget requests specific to their own office's goals and objectives for the upcoming biennium. At no time during this opportunity for our trustees to get a chance to ask the questions, to be informed, because this is something new for all of us, and we appreciate everyone's patience, your understanding, and support as we go through this together as one team. This is not us against them, none of that. This is just informative, and the questions that we ask is going to be out of consideration, out of curiosity of things that we're not quite aware of. And it's also going to help us to gain a better perspective on how these funds are utilized for each of the departments. This is important for all of us to be maka'ala about how this is run, and as well as the alignment of what this biennium is going to do for all of us in the next 2 years. At this time, though, once again, as our CEO will be presenting an overview of what our budget's going to be like and giving us a better insight of how this is going to unfold, so that questions that we ask will follow along with her as she will point out specifics on the questions that we ask trustees. So be mindful of that. Again, this is not a inquisition. This is not a tribunal or anything like that. It's just simply an informative session for us to understand our budget for the coming years. So at this time, I'd like to turn over the mic to our CEO and CFO, Ramona Hink, and CEO, Stacy Farah.
Mahalo, Chair, Vice Chair, trustees. I just want to thank you for the opportunity to present out our budget over a series of days. As you can imagine, the kuleana that this board carries in ensuring that we are spending our trust resources in a responsible and prudent way is not something that you gloss over. And so I appreciate the opportunity to go into more detail and make sure that there is a clear line of sight for the board between what the administration has put forth, as well as even what the board suite has put forth in terms of what our spending priorities are going to be, or how they align with our agency spending priorities. This process that we're going through is no different than what the county council does. It's no different than what the legislature does. And this is a process that OHA participates in when we go to the legislature every year with our biennium request. So we are prepared, but we are, anticipating that there will be questions. I ask in advance that if there are questions that we don't have an answer for, that we will make sure to get back to the board in a very timely fashion, either as a follow-up through email, or we can come back at the next following meeting, if that's allowed, to provide those updates.
Absolutely. Okay. Yes, thank you so much for that. I'm glad you clarified that. And just to reiterate to you folks that if you do not know the answer, it's fine, perfectly fine. Naturally, you will get back to us on that. It's just for us to take that opportunity to seek the questions and answers as we go along. Things will pop up, and then sometimes we may kind of go out of order. But be patient with us as trustees as we learn the intricacies of what you're going to be presenting, and leave it to them as far as the questions and so forth, just in case.
Yes, mahalo.
You got it. All right, go ahead.
So I think it's really important for us, before we jump into the actual budget details, I'm going to take the board through some level setting just to make sure that we are all looking at the same documents, that we can reference the documents pretty quickly, just so that we can make sure that we're using our time wisely. So in your packets, you should have various documents. One of those documents will be the respective PIA or executive presentation. So the first one, I will start, and then you will have the subsequent ELT leaders coming up and sharing out their presentation. So we'll always start with this presentation. Does everybody have that?
Okay, hold on.
It's on the screen, but it should be in your packets
Got
as
it.
well. Okay. The trustees should also have in their packet the latest org charts separated out by 26 and 27.
Yep, got that.
Okay.
Sorry.
And then finally, which will be key documents that we'll be referencing. The first is this humongous document, and hold on, for all the trees. I think we're gonna have to figure out a way to get electronic about this. But this big document is the preliminary biennium budget details. So that's another, you should have that. And then the last document that we'll be referencing based off of your questions will be our preliminary travel requests document. So all, and you know what, if you need your trustee aides to assist, please come up to the table and assist your trustee, so that we can get to there's just a lot of information. So we're going to try to move through it as effortlessly as possible. What I'd like to do before we get started is, can we just take a look at the preliminary biennium budget details? So it's this document. So I know it's not on the screen. I'm not sure if we can get it on the screen, or if you folks have it in front of you.
Yeah, she's working on it.
Okay. Well, I just want to make sure everybody has it, but we're going to go to page 2. And thank you, Chair, for calling it out, because that's going to be part of our protocol, is we want to make sure that we have a way to get everybody to the same point
Exactly.
in the document very quickly.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so on page 2, what you see in front of you is the FY26 budget summary. And if you have a question on any one particular thing, what I'd like to ask the trustees is to call out well, first off, which document are you referring to? Would you like us to see? And then if you could tell us the page number, and then call out the column and the row number. And then we'll be able to sync very quickly to that.
Okay, good.
Okay. All right. So let's just start off with page 2. in the Biennium Budget Detail document, because I want to make sure that we're baselined on the 80,000 foot level in terms of the numbers that we're going to be working with. So everything that's going to be shared out over the next 2 weeks by our different leaders is really a detail and a cascade from these high-level budget numbers. Okay, so if everybody could take a look at column I, row 6, it should say 49,436,652.
Yeah, got it.
Okay, everybody's there.
You got it?
So that is our spending limit. That's our starting point. For us to achieve a balanced budget, we need to come as close, if not to that amount. The budget request you'll see is column I, row 7, at $46,850,825. When you see those brackets, when you see the parentheses around that, that tells you that it's less than or a negative. But in this case, a negative is not a bad thing. That just means that we're under the spending limit, right? So if we look at column I, row 8, we have a budget surplus. So we're basically minusing our budget requests from our spending limit. And you see that at this point in time, as of today, we have a budget surplus of $2.5 million, right? $2,585,827. And this is strictly from the core, as we're in that I column, right? So those are our various sources of funds, right, that comprise that spending limit that gives us the monies to be able to spend the 49 million. And then you'll see as you go across, right, the blue is your commercial properties, yellow is legacy, our federal funds are in that kind of orangish color. And then if you keep going all the way across in column U, lines 6 and 7, again, our spending limit and our budget request, right? So if you're looking at U, column U, line 6, our spending limit is $68,144,328. And our budget request is $61,703,252. So we have a budget surplus of $6,441,076. As we go through our our budget details, and the leaders will come up and they will explain to you why they're asking for certain appropriations. And then you may have further questions about those appropriations. Also keep in mind that, we came in as lean as possible. So my directions to the team was we need to ask for absolutely what is the bare minimum in terms of being able to operate our programs and services, and always going back and looking at your previous spend. So I don't subscribe to we just keep increasing year over year. It really should be a zero-based budget. We ask for what we need. And since we do have new leadership, there have been additional protocols. So around travel, so there are a lot of new ways of determining who from OHA travels. And so accordingly, those kinds of things those protocols will be reflected in our budgets. And there's going to be a lot, like I said, that we're going to go over. But I think if we can all just kind of ground ourselves that over the fiscal biennium, we are operating right now at a surplus. So there are opportunities for the board to come in with additional priorities that can be funded. So it'll be a really great opportunity for us to have discussions around what other strategic opportunities that we should be funding. And certainly, I'm sure operationally, our directors have things that when I said keep it lean, that they didn't put in here that they would probably like some consideration for. But we will wait to go through the process and make sure that everybody has an opportunity to share out first before we start adding anything in. Good. But it's a good position to be in. It's way worse to have to cut, but that's not our situation. So thank you for that.
Sounds good.
Okay, so I'm gonna start off with my presentation. Yeah. And I've asked Ramona to stay here with me, just in case I need a SEAL Team 7 person to get real precision real quick for me. Okay, so I'm going to take you through an overview of the CEO office, and I'm not one to go word for word on a slide. So I'm just going to keep it high level. I'd ask that we keep the questions until the end. So if you want to annotate as we go through the presentation, please do so. And we're happy to go back into anything that's in this presentation, or if it's not in the presentation, if it's in any of these other documents, I'm happy to revisit that. Okay, so for the CEO, at the end of the day, my job is I serve at the pleasure of this board, right? So it is my job to ensure that the priorities of this board are being executed upon. And it's not just at the board level, when I say board level, like this body as the BOT, but it's also the committees and the committee chairs and their teams. And then we also have individual trustees, right? Because they all are representing their individual constituents. And so my kuleana really, it goes across all of those levels, right? So it's you folks as a larger body, you folks as smaller working groups, and then you as individual trustees, right? So the work that I'm executing on a daily basis is really to ensure that I'm meeting the needs of the Board of Trustees, but I'm also ensuring that OHA is staying in alignment with our Hawaii Revised Statutes, Chapter 10 and 10H, and all of the things that are outlined in those state directives. And furthermore, it's my kuleana to ensure that everything that we are doing operationally is furthering Mana'i Mauliola. If there are several documents actually that help lead this organization, and the Constitution, Article 12, our OHA mandate in HRS Chapter 10 and 10H, and Mana'i Mauliola, all three of those really kind of come together to set a North Star for this organization. And every dime we spend should be in the furtherance of those things. And this budget that you have before you really is an articulation of how that gets done. So next page, on page 4. Oh, sorry. I'll be good to say next slide. Okay, next slide. Yeah, if you want to zoom in a little bit on that. So this next slide is a listing of core responsibilities and the functions of my role in my execution for the Board of Trustees. It's not an exhaustive list of kuleana, but I do believe that it's at least a high-level overview of the things that are expected of me to deliver on. And so, strategic leadership and vision. The strategic leadership is really the execution and the operationalizing of the strategic visioning that has come from this board, right? So I shouldn't be diverging and, doing things that I cannot, or any of our staff members or leadership cannot draw a direct alignment to our strategic plan, because that is the plan that has been put forward by this board. And the level of discipline that we've put into this organization is, if folks are talking about anything, resources, if we're going out into community, the question is always, how does this align to Mana'i Mauliola? Because if it doesn't, then we probably shouldn't be doing it. So governance and oversight, again, I talked about ensuring that we are delivering upon those mandates. A budget and financial stewardship. So I work very closely with Ramona and her team. It has been an interesting process to work much more closely with the Board of Trustees on the budgeting process. Again, really taking on a much more detailed and more in-depth dive into the budget. And so it is our job to ensure that we are working closely and providing that support to the BOT as they put their budget together as well. Policy development and advocacy, that is one of our biggest assets of this organization, and one that really allows our beneficiaries to rest assured that we are going to be able to put our leo, our voice is going to be heard. And whether that's in the courtroom or that's at the legislature or at the county level or at the federal level, that we have our compliance and advocacy professionals consistently and constantly keeping our thumb on our rights, our privileges, ensuring that our people can execute on and practice their traditions and customs. And then we have our land and trust asset management, and this is a growing area. It's a very exciting area for OHA. As we continue to grow our endowment under our endowment director, Ryan Lee, which is super exciting. And now we have a carve out with our investment and land management committee. You know, there's this extra emphasis now on how do we build out our real estate portfolio? How do we look at Aina back for our people? When we think about how we are exerting our self-governance, part of that is to have a land base for our people. And land base looks like many things. It's a land base that can generate revenues so that we can continue to deliver services and programs. But it's also a place where we have permanence in our own home. Extremely important. And so I work very closely with our land and our trust asset leadership. And then beneficiary engagement and our beneficiary engagement services folks. Another critical aspect of the work that we do. They are our frontline folks. They are the first faces and voices, the faces you see and the voices you hear when you come to OHA. And they are a critical support system to all of our neighbor island trustees as they really manage those offices. And again, we really count on them to be that first line of support to our beneficiaries. Personnel and our organizational culture has been a huge emphasis prior to Chair coming on, but even more so with his leadership, is really trying to get I'm going to say it's not even assertive. We are being aggressive on really trying to address our vacancies, creating an environment that makes OHA an employer of choice. And when I say an environment, it's multi-layered. It's how we treat people. It's the environment that you get to come and work in every day. And it's also about competitive compensation. And that's going to be a major theme throughout this budget briefings as we go along. Our intergovernmental and partner relations, and this has been a big push for me, as well as our new strategy and implementation team. We cannot do this work alone. We have over 500,000 beneficiaries, Native Hawaiians. Unfortunately, they all don't live here in our Pai'aina. But even those that do live here, the need is so great and the lift so heavy that OHA in and of itself cannot do this work alone. We're going to have to partner to leverage resources of others. And that's what we've already begun doing, creating MOAs with different agencies so that we can hopefully spread out the resources so that we can do more. Oh, shucks. I was just reminded I have 10 minutes. I'm so sorry. I want to speed it up. Cultural stewardship and protocol. We have our new division of Hawaiian Cultural Affairs, and accountability and reporting, crisis response, and risk management, all handled through our ops department under the leadership of our COO. Please. Okay. Our CEO structure is the next page. So next slide, please. This is actually that middle square has expanded exponentially in the last few months. And so right now, the new additions, just to call out for you, is Ryan Lee, our endowment director, now reports, is a direct to me, as well as Lori Walker, our interim director for land assets, and Corey Nakamoto, director of human resources. And that's just to be able to demonstrate to this organization and to our beneficiaries that these particular divisions need to be at the leadership table helping to inform, make decisions, help strategize, and collectively there is a synergy that is created when you have this grouping of people at the table to ensure that we can have effectiveness and efficiency across the organization. Okay, next slide. So our goals and objectives, this is not going to be new to you, but for the biennium, our budget should be reflecting that our spending will prioritize employer of choice. And what that's going to look like in detail is going to be salaries. There's going to be an increase in that because we are way under market, and that has been detrimental, and it has not served OHA well. We have not been able to recruit nor retain as we would have liked to. And with the competitive market out there with the state and the county also trying to hire qualified, competent staffing, we are in a position where we need to be competitive. So you will see that. It will also look like staff development and training. Those are some of the line items that you're gonna see. Operational process and infrastructure improvements, you will see line items that call out new systems, the use of AI, technology that's going to help us to be more effective, more efficient, and hopefully take some of the manual processes out of the work and put it in a more either digital or AI form that will help us to expedite the work that we do. Executing transformational programs and services. A lot of what OHA was doing, whether it's in advocacy, communications, through IT and ops, a lot of good work that was already in play. However, very little movement on Mana i Mauliola in those specific strategic directions: housing, economic resilience, health outcomes, and education. So strategy and implementation was retooled, if you will. We had a PIA called strategy management, and that was reformed to be strategy implementation. And it was their job to really look at what are those strategic objectives that were called out by our trustees, and how can we be very precision-like about creating tactics that will create impact and will start moving the meter. So you're going to see lots of line items as the directors come up, and they'll talk about their programs and services. What I loved about this particular process that we went through in terms of our budget planning was that the BOT suite, the trustees were also coming forward with strategic priorities and programs that were of interest to them that they felt would really help to move the meter with our beneficiaries. So I really appreciated that. And you'll see those things reflected too. And then obviously there are going to just be things that we need to do operationally because it's our mandates by state law or through ethics or other governing bodies that we have to be compliant. So we have many specific goals, and what I've tried to do is I've outlined them. So if you see the spending priority number 1 is OHA as an employer of choice, you'll see that the specific goal 1A, 1B, 1C all align to how we expect to effectuate that spending priority. Similarly for 2 and 3. Okay, next slide. There's a lot of words on this paper, and so I'm just going to keep it high level. I think what would probably be of most interest to our trustees are the 2 boxes in the middle. What are our key goals and objectives this year? And then what are the major programs, projects, and initiatives? This is not exhaustive. Obviously, everything can't fit in these little boxes. However, I did want to at least try to highlight things that I thought would be of interest to you. So our key goals and objectives this year under that first strategy around being an employer of choice is recruitment and retention, filling vacancies, reducing our interim positions. We want to get full-time permanent people in place. Stability is important for every organization. We want to increase our staff morale, and that's going to be done through competitive market compensation, ensuring that we have a safe, healthy work environment. And Kehaupu and Royce Campbell and our director of HR, Corey, that's their job. Make sure that those things are in place and that they're happening at a high level. And more importantly, not that they're just happening, but that our staff feels and believes that this is actually the case. right? So it's not about just saying that we're doing these things, but is it really affecting and impacting in a positive way the lives of our staff? And then agency-wide trainings, professional development, and that's professional development across the board with our staff members, at the PIA level, and then certainly even our leaders, even our board members. Everybody needs training. Nobody has ever just arrived. I mean, we all have an opportunity to learn and to be better and to grow as professionals. And then what that looks like in practice is we've already done our signing bonus program, but we're going to continue it until we get our positions filled. We're redescribing positions. We had an ad hoc group with the trustees that looked at salary releveling. And so that will be a topic of conversation and discussion tomorrow. And then opportunities for Launa. It's really important for Pilina building. Work isn't just about doing the tasks. It's really about being able to enjoy the people that you're with, the people that you have to depend on every day to do this work, and building trust. And we need to have opportunities outside of just the paper pushing or the program delivery to build that Pilina. So there is emphasis in our budgets to ask for resources for that. Trauma-informed care training, ongoing trainings to ensure that we do have a safe and healthy workplace. Those things have started and will continue. Okay, going on to the next page. So this is the strategic priority number 2 for spending, and that's operational process and infrastructure improvements. So our key goals and objectives this year is integrating AI and enterprise systems to streamline our processes. And it's not just to do process improvement, but also to have analytics to be able to demonstrate to trustees that how we're being effective. What does that efficiency actually look like? Okay. So there's going to be many opportunities in the budget details to see those systems called out, or subscriptions. I'm just going to pick one more thing. We're going to expand our endowment team. We're going to leverage technology to enhance our investment performance and strategic fund deployment. So if you look across to 2D under major programs and initiatives, we're going to hire a full-time analyst
30 seconds.
and incorporate select technology tools. And that's important. So what you're also going to see, in addition to the salary releveling, we're also looking to add in additional positions. So our directors will be sharing with you when there is an additional position being requested, they will call that out. May I ask for a few more minutes, Chair? Go ahead. Mahalo. Okay, let's just forward to the budget request. Budget request. So one more, keep going. Yeah, go up. Keep going. Next slide. No. Okay. So this is the meat and potatoes, I think, that the trustees want to get into. So over the biennium, my office is proposing a budget of $1.1 million, so $1,146,262 in FY26, and $1,129,254 in FY27. My 2-year ask is $2,275,516, and you see the breakout as listed below. The largest category of expense for me is personnel, and followed by the next would be travel. And I want to talk a little bit about the travel, contracts. Hello, my contracts. And the reason that contracts is so high is because I have put the monies for an independent audit of our Hawaiian Kingdom Crown and government lands into my budget. And if and when this body is ready to make a decision on how you want to proceed, that money will be there. The second highest category is my travel costs. And this is not me singularly, although it does pay for travel for myself and the 2 executive administrative assistants. to do our professional development. But a large part of that is my attendance for meetings on behalf of the organization. And I've also, because of the new protocols that we have in place that our new chair, Kahele, has put in place, that we're being very particular about when we have international travel and even domestic travel, who is required to go. So it's not going to be a free-for-all. Just because everybody wants to go doesn't mean we're going to go. So all international travel has been put into my budget, because that will be a conversation that I will have with Chair Kahele as he determines who will be the delegation from OHA. And so that's how we got to that large amount. I'm going to stop there. If you want to go on to the next slide, this might be maybe a launching point for trustees for additional questions. I just gave you the top three. My budget is pretty simple, pretty straightforward. But I'll stop there and take questions.
Okay, trustees?
Raising their hands.
Sure.
Yes, go ahead, trustee Galutario.
Basically, it's for the contracts. So that's, that million is allocated towards the inventory
Correct. And it's $500,000 each fiscal year.
each fiscal year. And
Correct.
that is a match. Is that a
Well,
match? or
that
are
was,
we
that
taking
was
it
the
off?
intention. The intention was to do a match with the legislature. That bill did not make it out of conference.
Yeah,
However, I do think that it's important that we do continue to keep a carve out, because this body is not determined what our next steps will be
sure.
regarding the inventory. And instead of trying to retroactively try to carve it out from somebody else's budget, we should just be proactive and have the money available if and when you're ready.
Sure. And the timeline on that is 2 years.
Correct. So we have 500,000
Yeah, 500,000.
in 26 and 500,000 in 27.
And how do we?
And we
this
could
is a-
carry it over from 26 if need be.
Yes. Final question on this matter.
Go ahead.
Chair. How do we have assurances that what we do come up with is recognized as the legitimate inventory?
I think that's a conversation we can take offline. Because I think the board will have to determine what our how we're gonna proceed
Okay,
at this point, and I think that'll be part of the details.
that's fine. Mahalo.
Anyone else? Go ahead, John.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I gotta apologize. I didn't write this question, so if my inflections don't reflect the spirit of it,
Okay.
but, okay, Kapohana, this is for you.
Okay, mahalo.
Regarding the request for an AI software subscription like Chat GPT,
Yes.
what assessment was done on what's current Microsoft Copilot offering to determine that a separate subscription might be needed? On a personal level, I gotta say, I'm very ignorant on such matters. I once sent my AI to a therapist because it had neural issues. My AI had neural issues, is what I'm saying.
So there's nothing keeping us from using Copilot. It's still in its beta phase. It's not fully, and you know what? When it comes to technology, everything is constantly being upgraded, and Chat GPT is preferred. And I think across the agency, many of us are already using it. I will share with you that Everett has been looking into the legalities of using AI and what kinds of guardrails and protections we need to put in place for the agency as we continue to use AI more and more, because we are a government agency. We did have a meeting with the state CIO. She came and she met with us, and she has shared the state's their protocols and procedures for using AI, and we're going to continue to work with them, because again, it's going to continuously evolve. But Chat GPT is the preferred, and again, that doesn't preclude folks from using what we have in Microsoft. But I think having tools in the tool belt is not a bad thing. I don't think that the budget request is substantial. And it certainly does help to create expedience in much of the writing, a lot of the writing that we do. So I'll leave it at that.
Go ahead, trustee, Lindsay.
Turn off
Oh,
your,
you turn off your.
Stacy, will only one person in each program will PIA have a subscription to the AI graphic design software?
Yes, so what we had determined was that we would be able to, we would get a license and be able to share the username password so that multiple folks. So ChatGPT is a little bit different because the things that you create are kind of personalized to the work that you do individually. But there are like presentation software, Canva, things like that, where, we could share a license and basically share the password and the username login. So
So
multiple users.
Like a one PIA would have one license?
I think it's detailed out on how many we put in per page 17. And again, this is a starting point, Chair Emerita.
Mhm.
So if we feel that it needs to be, if we need to increase it, we can. Let's see. Go ahead. Yeah. So we're looking at page 17, and this is line 25. So we were looking at, it's $300 per year per person. So in the CEO's office, 2 licenses, CEO 2 licenses, R&E 6, S&I 12, Ops 6, so on and so forth. BOT 11. So that means every trustee would have their own login, and then chief of staff and deputy chief of staff.
But it's the same license.
No, it would be, this one is a separate license for this software. So PIAs will have to share, the BOT will have their own.
Oh,
The
okay.
chief of staff, deputy chief of staff will have their own. I will have my own. CFO. Go ahead. Did you have a follow-up?
I have a follow-up
Yep.
on this.
Go ahead.
How do we determine who, like, not the board of trustees 11? Like, I would like the whole board of trustees to have the access. Did we reach out to ChatGPT and see what it would cost to an OHA-wide license?
So what was put into this budget was what was requested by each of the PIAs. So we consolidated it into one. Yeah. And
Would
so,
we fire with
That's once we
ChatGPT
have,
about getting
when
a
each one comes on, then we do it for the each.
that would encompass all of OHA, depending on the amount of personnel that the company has,
is Sandy here?
rather than individual licenses? That's a
Oh,
follow-up.
yeah, I'll follow up. Sandy did inquire regarding the different levels of subscription. We will follow up with you on a, sure.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah,
You had one more.
okay.
Yeah, you're in.
I guess page 17 and 18, these would be, actually, it's on page 18. Line 127, line 137, those are for FY 26. Then it would be line 145 and line 155 on page 19. So this is the Makana and the honorariums, and I'm just trying to
Okay.
get an idea on the difference between the two. One of the things we've seen through the budget is individual PIAs that have honorarium budgets, including the Board of Trustees budget. And one of the thoughts is, have we thought about centralizing the honorariums where the Board of Trustees has their honorarium budget and all other honorarium budgets are centralized in the administrative office, so that if a individual PIA wanted an honorarium for whatever reason, that they would submit the request to the admin's office. We, rather than have multiple honorarium accounts
Mhm.
or line items, we would centralize that. And that way you would have proper oversight over it. The board suite would have proper oversight over their honorarium budgets rather than multiple PIAs having honorarium budgets.
And being able to see the balance.
Chair, that's a great suggestion, and I don't think that there would be any issue with doing that at all.
I guess if you just look at your honorarium budget of
Mhm.
$6,000.
Uh-huh.
I mean, you have the breakdown there. Was that like based on, previous budgets that we've extended? And how are you doing on? extending your
Yes.
current honorarium budget?
Yes, so this was based off of, and again, an estimate on how many times we had unexpected, because many times, there will be meetings. Chair Emerita, your mic.
Oh, that's where it's.
So these types of, like the lay for special guests, if we are asking somebody to come in and be as a speaker for us, for a training session or, you know, for a special occasion, say our Christmas program or whatever, typically we're not only paying them that honorarium, but we're also giving them a lay, right? So, that's what some of that is. But I will tell you, there are many, many occasions as the CEO that people will schedule a meeting with me, or we'll have a delegation come into town. And just because of their role, that we would buy them a lei as, you know, and to greet them when they come to the office as just part of being a Hawaiian organization. You know, we feel like that is, you know, that's an acceptable practice. But I have that as a placeholder, and certainly I can look at it over time. I mean, I don't have many years of trend data because I've only been here a year and a half. So I'm only, you know, basing it off of what we did last year. But this money does get expended, and we do have many impromptu and unanticipated visitors, meetings, that this money has been used for.
Go ahead, Ramona.
I'd just like to add too, that in our budget process, that we did consolidate most of the honorariums from all the other departments. And we basically put it in the CEO's office and beneficiary services, since they're the outfacing department.
We do.
Thank
That
you.
board honorarium, yeah.
But I think to Chair's point, if we, even the beneficiary services, we can consolidate that. And then it just, it puts an added layer of
Oversight.
yeah,
Accountability.
not a problem.
Can you clarify, just the last question in terms of the OHA seal Makana, that, line 27, are these like distinct from swag or honorariums? What would you coin that as?
Number, I'm sorry.
Page 18, line 127, OHA
you.
seal Makana, $2,500 for each fiscal year.
Wait.
Just wondering the
Oh,
difference
yeah.
between that versus.
Yes, okay, thank you. So I have asked, our Senior Director of Hawaiian Cultural Affairs to create a seal for the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. I think it's appropriate. It's actually called out in our statute. We've never done it. As a government agency, we should have one, not just a logo. I do believe that it raises the status, or it should reflect the status of this agency. And so in this particular line item, what I'm asking for is not swag in terms of what we would give, you know, just a visitor. This would be a dignitary. This would be somebody that, you know, has a rank or role in government or in some kind of, yeah, cultural, is culturally significant. And it's to put our new forthcoming OHA seal and things that I think are customary when you look at other governments. These are the kinds of things that they give.
Thank you. Mahalo. I just wanted to add to that. Having a seal, having an official, proper symbol, and that being able to provide that to dignitaries, other governing entities, and to our people, it provides that part of the ea and the identity. Mahalo.
Absolutely, trustee.
And I also want to add, I know I had mentioned the seal and a flag with OHA's to be seal and a pin. I believe that would be a good. Thank you.
And so I just want to give further note and just kind of jumping off of what trustee Akaka just said, in requesting the pins. So we heard that and we made sure that that was included. But this amount is this is a starting point. And again, this is not for administration. This is for all of us at the highest levels of our leadership will have in their offices or have access to. So when you travel, if people come here, and we know that they're coming, we can make sure that we have proper makana ready and waiting for you folks to, and myself, to be able to present. So it's not your basic t-shirt, although that's nothing wrong with a t-shirt, but this does take us to a different status in terms of our government position.
Trustee Ahuna? Unmute your, yeah, there you go.
I believe Trustee Souza was before me, but. Oh. Okay, my question comes in the on the budget, just the budget. Which initiatives or expenses like contracts, programming, staffing, etc., have flexibility to be partially or completely deferred to the fiscal year 27 or beyond if cost savings and organizational priorities took precedence?
Thank you, trustee, for that question. I only have one contract, and that contract appropriation is for the land inventory. And certainly, if FY26 is determined by this board that we're not going to move on it, then we can do a carryover to fiscal year 27. So there is definite flexibility.
Okay, on rows 140 through 142 and 158 to 160, it's just I'm just asking for like an explanation of like what are the what is the purpose and intent or expected results of these programs that you have here? 2.5 thousand for 5 conference training fees.
2,500.
Yeah.
Okay, so as I had mentioned in terms of our spending priorities, when we look at this agency being an employer of choice, there are various factors that create a culture that we want to promote here. And one part of that culture is a culture of learning and continuous improvement. And so we want to make sure that, and even myself as a leader here, I want to make sure that I have the tools in my toolbox and I'm always refining and learning new things. And I also want to make that opportunity available for the 2 senior executive assistants to be able to go and get training. So some of those cost items, line 140 is conference and training fees. And I don't have like an annual training necessarily that other than the ones that we've been going for investments. The other one is the Hawaii Executive Conference, and that is for CEOs across the state. That is a recurring one for me. But I'm asking for flexibility with this this particular appropriation, that when we see an opportunity that comes across us during the fiscal year and in alignment with our performance management goals. So that's something that we haven't talked about, is that when we set our performance management goals at the beginning of the fiscal year, staff development is going to be a huge part of the goal setting. So when myself or a staff member puts in a request to go to a training or a conference, there should be alignment with what was put into that plan, that goal setting. That's not to say that there may something else may come up during the year that might be, really necessary, just maybe to address some unforeseen event or whatever that we need to get skilled on. But for the most part, those performance management goal setting really should help to inform what is being selected by a staff member or myself to attend. Sorry, there's other things, but there is opportunity for me to be able to attend and have a small amount set aside for receiving folks internationally, nationally, across Hawaii, to be able to provide food for like a welcome reception or events,
Right.
hosting of meetings. We just held our budget meetings with community, and we provided a very small, offering of sandwiches because anticipating that
and-
people are going to come here in the evenings, right? And so it is during dinner time. So it's an opportunity for us to have a small amount of money to be able to host people when they come. Partners, prospective partners.
And I was there and it was wonderful. And the food was good. So
Yeah.
thank you for that.
And then I'm just gonna continue on to page 19. So these dues on line 147, page 19. The Native Hawaiian Chamber of Commerce and CNHA org-wide memberships, although they're in my budget, they are org-wide memberships.
Okay, go ahead, trustee Akaka. And then afterwards is trustee Souza.
Mahalo. Well, this is just specifically regarding that point you just made regarding the Native Hawaiian Chamber of Commerce and CNHA org-wide membership. I would like to explore, maybe it's not specifically with this line item, but whether it's seminar, conferences, what that would look like in us supporting our Royal Societies and the Hawaiian Civic Clubs. Well, for instance, yes. So for instance, the Civic Club, they have their convention, their conference. And I think that's something that we should explore in terms of how do we become a main staple in there, given that part of the AL, part of our advocacy is working hand in hand with them, I would believe. So what that would look like in terms of civic engagement.
Thank you for the question. I think there's two ways I see that in our budget. One, it would be reflected in sponsorships.
Mhm.
And then the second one would be in our individual members wanting to attend. And I know many of our staff and probably trustees are members of civic clubs. So sometimes they're going as delegates, as well as sort of wearing their OHA hat and going for professional development and civic engagement. So I think we may see it in two places. One as an organizational, support, and then individually as a conference that they would want to attend. But I make up that, again, because we're gonna have so many people that are gonna want to go. We would want to see it in their performance management goals, but it would also be a conversation with chair too, because again, that's a large number of staff that would be attending this one particular thing. Is Hailama here? Do they go off island? Yeah, they do. So again, whenever we have, off-island travel, going to the continent or whatever, this would then be a conversation with chair to ensure that we know who's traveling, what the purpose and all of that. Yeah, so my fiscal year 26 is just replicated in 27. Again, I have very few asks. The other one, line row 153 is the CEO allowance, and that is per my contract. But other than that, I think I've answered all the items.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, trustee Souza.
Mahalo, Madam Chair. Mahalo Kapuana. Talking about programs, line item 139. $600 for executive office holiday decorations. I'm gonna focus on the biggest budget here. I don't want anything slipping through the board right now.
You know what?
So-
No,
No.
thank you for bringing that up. No, because you know why? If we could have the ladies bring up my presentation. It's actually in the presentation.
Okay. Well, my question was because you just said it's reflective in 2027. I only see it in 26. I
Ah.
don't see it in 27. Do we
Well-
not have spirit in 27?
Well, you know what? I'm actually, so if you look at the fiscal year 26, 27 projects and initiatives for the CEO, you'll see that there is an asterisk by holiday decorations. And then I have a line at the very bottom. It says may be reduced or reallocated to operations due to planned ELT office relocation. So the reason that we had asked, and we get, again, a lot of folks that come through our office, and it was real putting. We were like Scrooge. Everybody had beautiful decorations and so be it, right? The BOT should have a beautiful presentation, as should our reception area. But our reception area, we had like the Charlie Brown Christmas tree that we found in the closet and it was kind of crazy looking. However, with that said, we don't need Christmas decorations if we are going to be relocating to the second floor, because then we get to share in all of the beautiful festivities and decorations that are down here. So I'm putting that back into the budget to say that, you know, most likely I'm going to redline that myself. So
I like the Christmas decorations. We use it over and over and over.
well, if we don't, well, the only reason that we would buy it is because we're separated out and we have a reception area that we would like to decorate. But if we're down on the second floor, we don't need that because they do a beautiful job decorating the reception area. And then, Pu'uvai, her gift and talent, she, within Suite 200, when you go in the back, she does an amazing, holiday setup. So I have full confidence that if we move to 200, we will be, decorations represented.
All a couple on.
Yeah.
All, Madam Chair.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, trustee Galutaria?
Yeah, I'll be brief. This is more informational. As we move forward, bear in mind that the Native Hawaiian Chamber of Commerce is the Oahu Chamber.
Yes.
And we have a Maui, a Big Island, and a Kauai Chamber as well. So it would behoove us not to try and put the Alahui together in some way, shape, or form. And if it's membership, at least we're providing leadership
Okay,
on the bigger scale.
we will make a note of that.
Okay, Mahalo.
We're gonna move on to HR. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Kai.
Thanks, Chair. Stacy, can we switch gears
Sure.
to your travel request?
Yes.
So new spreadsheet,
Yep.
trustees. You have that in front of you. That's gonna be page 13
Thank you.
of the travel worksheet.
Well,
I have one question,
So, but
just for clarification on the in-state travel requests, and then I guess the majority of the clarification can be on the international and non-employee travel requests. So the first one on the in-state travel request, line number, I guess it's item number 12, the Mary Monarch presentation of the Olelo Award. Is that something that we normally do? I notice you don't repeat it in
I'm
27.
sorry, where, what line? 30?
Page 13 of 60, line item number 36, item 12, FY 2026 budget. Mary Monarch presentation of the Olelo Award by OHA.
Uh-huh. Mary Monarch should be reflected in both years. If it's not, then that needs to be.
I was just wondering, because obviously the chair
Missing.
presents the award, our chair emerita presented the award this year.
Oh,
Not
that's,
to
that-
nitpick your budget, I'm just
no, no, no,
asking
that's
if
not, that's not, trying to
what is that?
insinuate that I'm gonna be the presenter. However, you know, it has been in the very short tenure that I've gone both, I've gone both times for Mary Monarch. Both times we had a parade, we participated in the parade. This time we had our office blessing, but I'm making some assumptions here that this has been the travel the past 2 years, so.
Okay,
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah.
It's to go to the Mary Monarch Festival
Correct.
during that week to more than likely at least participate in the parade
Correct.
since, yeah, okay, got it. Okay, makes sense. All right, let's go to international travel requests. So this is two big buckets, yeah, $116,530 for both, fiscal years.
What line are you on?
I guess you could start at line 102, right? There's several repatriation trips. You had mentioned earlier in your presentation that you had purposely moved these budgets
Yeah.
out of Kamakana and other PAIA budgets into yours. There's also under the non-employee travel for being paid for Hui Iwi Kuamo'o to go to Paris, as well as Maui practitioners to go to Berlin. We'll ask these questions of Kamakana when he comes before the board as support staff when he does,
Thank you.
in advocacy, but can you explain to us the international travel requests, the Talanoa, these, WIPSI, how the participants And I guess the question for the trustees would be, assuming that we did approve this travel request, we would be authorizing the travel of these individuals and these OHA staff to participate?
Yes. So, and again, I think there's some flexibility, right? I mean, God willing, I'll, the people that we've listed here will be the ones that are still here and being able to travel. But this, again, this is our best forecasting on, because there are things that are already in the works in terms of repatriation efforts. So this is a forecast of, once it actually has to get executed, it's going to be during this fiscal year. And we're going to need funds, even though they may be working on it in FY25, the execution of the trip will be in FY26. So I think that's why you see some specificity around at least the repatriations, because that's work that's already in progress. The Talanoa, so this is just continue, and I'm going to take a step back. So one of the trustees' priorities, in addition to protection of EV and VOI, is international relations. And so with the previous chair, I had the opportunity to be able to participate in the various talanoas that occurred, in the Pacific, and certainly when they came here to Hawaii, there is an anticipation that we are going to continue those conversations. Hawaii led. I mean, Ailoma did an amazing job leading those talanoas during FESPAC, and there is an expectation that we would continue our leadership role in those discussions and the continuing development of those international relations across Moani Nui Akea. So again, these are my best guesstimates on the amount of travel that may be forthcoming. The Austronesian Forum, again, this was something that Chair and I attended. And I think we made a pretty big impact when we went. OHA had previously gone. Previous administrators had attended. This was my first, and then there was a long time in which nobody represented the office. And then Chair Emerita and I went. And again, we were very well received. And I thought we added some significant contributions to those conversations. And so I would love for us to be able to continue to participate in those, the Austronesian Forum and then the Oceania Traditional Leaders. Same kind of engagements where, again, you're bringing leaders from across the Pacific to talk about issues, geopolitical issues that we're all facing. Then WIPSI is coming up, and that was a big request by staff to attend. It is, there is a huge education focus with WIPSI, but it is probably one of the paramount cultural events, and OHA presence should be there. So I think it's a matter of who should be there representing OHA.
I guess that would be my point.
Yeah.
Is, maybe I wouldn't be so specific in
Uh-huh.
3C about who's attending, that we're going to attend and
Uh-huh.
have some type of presence,
Yeah.
but we haven't made a determination on
Sure.
who is going to go
Mhm.
to represent OHA. And, obviously this doesn't include the Board of Trustees side of the house either,
Correct.
right? So the trip is already it's estimated to be $28,000. So I would give some thought into that.
Yep.
Okay,
Okay, so I'm sorry. So what you're saying though, so we do have a number. I will just take out in column H, row 105, we will take out the specific detail, but we will leave the number because we need a number. Well, we
Yeah.
do have the positions. Yeah, we'll take that out. Correct.
Yeah.
But I guess what I'm clarifying is we take that out, but we still leave column J, row 105, where it says people traveling 6, because we're going to need a budget amount.
Yeah,
So-
you could have a budget amount or get back to us on what would be a trimmed down version of that if we
This was the
needed to.
trimmed down version. This was one that I cracked down on because, of course, there's a huge desire for folks to attend this. And so this was the absolute pared down version.
Can you, pivoting back to the repatriation trips,
Yes.
can you speak to those? And the only reason I mentioned it was, we had a recent repatriation trip
Yep.
that came up and, you know, some trustees found out about, the entirety of the trip, I guess, after the fact, including people, non-OHA, staff that we had funded to go on these trips. And obviously, we have it in our budget here that we're asking to pay for two people from Hui'iwi Kuamo'o
Correct.
to go on this trip, or do we know who Maui practitioners are? There's more, I'm just hesitant about the board approving no-name people that are not OHA staff
Yeah.
to go on future travel that may or may not happen. Why are we asking for it now?
Mhm. So there are a few questions in there. So the first one regarding just what the repatriation that just occurred. So that was budgeted. And so that did come before the board. The board did know that they were, appropriating not only funds for repatriation efforts, but also for Hui'iwi Kuamo'o to attend and members to attend. And when Kamakana did come before the board, he did say that there were going to be additional people traveling. He did not name them, but he did say that others were going to be traveling. But I appreciate, Chair, that, the level of specificity that we can have now, right, as we're going line by line, is to be able to call out those things. The board did request that if we are to be working with Hui'iwi Kuamo'o, that there be an MOA in place. That is in process right now. So the directive that has been given to compliance is that there will be no further action with resources until we have an executed MOA. And so, again, this is a forecast. So we expect that MOA will be in place and that we will have members of Hui'iwi Kuamo'o that will be traveling as they have in previous times. The Maui one, I'm going to have to ask Kamakana to talk more about that, or Lei, on why they're bookmarking, if you will, or asking for that appropriation without a specific individual.
So just to clarify,
Yeah.
line 102, that's a repatriation request for the S&I Health
Mhm.
of $10,000, one person, 2 trips, Paris and Berlin. What
Yeah.
do those 2 trips mean?
So similar to the trip that just happened in Ireland, we have Kamakana who goes as our archaeologist, and then we have a cultural practitioner that will go to do the protocol. It doesn't have to necessarily be S&I. It may be more appropriate for our Senior Director of Hawaiian Cultural Affairs to go.
Sure.
But it's budgeted. So maybe, again, taking out that detail
Yeah.
is maybe distracting from, I guess, the original intent of the ask.
What would line 104 be? Kiha Wahine also under Kamakana.
Same thing.
Kamakana's
It's a
listed by the board.
repatriation to Maui. Well, Kamakana is the archaeologist. He is the one who is brokering the deals. Deals, that sounds bad. He's the one that is negotiating with the museums or the. Correct. And so that's why we were saying that, Kamakana's expertise is very specific, but as somebody needs to represent OHA from a cultural context.
I guess my question is though, why is it Paris, Berlin in 2 separate line items for 2 separate amounts rather than we're gonna do one repatriation trip in FY 26. It's going to be to Europe. Paris and Berlin are the destinations. Here's the one line item. Kamakana X number. Are you telling me this is 2 separate
I'm
trips
sorry.
or the same
I'm
trip?
sorry. So Mona just gave an important distinction. One, so the green is Kamakana, and then the white. Where are you seeing that? Okay, I see. So, okay, so Chair, I just want to make sure that I'm tracking. So, row 99, where it says, and column F. C, international travel employee is kamakana. Right? Is that what you're asking? And then below 147, row 147, column F, international travel non-employee, we make a distinction?
No, I'm referring to lines one oh
Yeah,
three
so
and one oh
kamakana
four.
doing both, right?
So where it says, what is kiha wahine?
That is,
No, I know, but why is it two separate line items? You have one green and you have one white. Both have monies allocated to them.
they're just two separate trips that
So-
he's calling them out separately. They're not one and the same.
So they're two totally different trips.
That's
from
my
Hawaii to
understanding.
Berlin, another trip from Hawaii to Paris.
That's my understanding, yes.
Can you clarify that?
Absolutely.
Just
Yep.
to make sure. Cause if it's the same trip, I don't know why we would be doing it twice, unless he's asking for two separate trips.
Well, one's Germany.
And then under the non-employee travel, hui kui iwi komo is only going on one of them, and kiha wahine,
Yes.
the Maui practitioners.
Because that is a specific artifact for Maui.
I think if you can provide more
Sure.
information on that from him, that would be helpful,
Absolutely.
just because they're of, sizable.
And
amounts.
compliance will be here, so I think that the deep dive can certainly happen
Yeah.
again, but we will follow up.
And just to clarify, why pull it into your budget rather than leave it in advocacies and compliance?
Because it's international travel, and I wanted to make sure that
Okay.
there were extra eyes.
Okay.
There was a lot of requests to do international travel, and that is the single most expensive travel cost.
Thanks, Chair. Those are the questions.
Oh, those are great. Okay, and any other questions? All right, seeing none, we're going to move on. We have three more presenters. We have HR, Endowment, and Hawaiian Cultural Resources. Thank you so much.
Mahalo po.
Kapohana, Ramona, thank you.
Thank you.
And, oh, I'm sorry, missed you. I'm so sorry. Sorry, Kalamai.
Wait,
Um,
You go for it. Yeah.
yeah, and then we, go ahead, I'm sorry, Kaleakaka, go ahead. Will somebody release their mic? Thank
Oh,
you.
call mine.
Hello. Okay, so, how do you ensure that budget allocations are aligned with your program's performance metrics and outcomes?
So I don't have any program specific, so I don't do programs and services. However, there are going to be several ways in which organizationally, the PIA will have to be able to demonstrate that. One will be through our performance management system and the work that they're expected to operationalize, and they're accomplishing those things throughout the year. And then secondly, SNI, one of their major tasks in conjunction with our research and evaluation team is to be able to create that dashboard. So that is one of the line items that is going to be requested, is to get a dashboard up and running so that we can do frequent reporting or consistent reporting to the board on programmatic and service impact.
Mahalo. That was actually something that came up on Monday night at the neighborhood board meeting for Waimanalo in terms of having data and houselessness, and that's where I had gone into talking about our dashboard and what that looks like in front of when we are presenting
to the mic.
to the state legislature, whether it's the Ways and Means Committee or the Finance Committee, and how we integrate that with our community and put that on our website and on our social media. So it shows all the good things we are doing and why we should be funded as so. And then the other question that I have here is what in-state travel purposes are anticipated, which is currently being budgeted for $6,030. It's very specific. And that's
Could you give me the
regarding,
page?
yeah,
number?
this is regarding travel worksheet, page 13.
Line 35, item number 11.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
Big kind of white chunk.
Yes, I see it. Thank you. Again, these are opportunities to travel when asked, either by external and, organizations or entities, There are times where there is a ceremony. Again, much of the work that we do is just unanticipated. I think all of us get invitations and like, can you folks attend? Or we'd really like an OHA representative. Or, chair will say, Stacy, you go represent. And, again, nowhere on the radar. However, we need to make sure that we have a budget allocation so that if and when called, or if and when there is an interest to, be able to participate or represent, I can do so.
Trustee Lindsay? Oh, turn off your, thank you.
Cece, in the past, it's always been our practice for our CEO and our COO not to travel at the same time. And this is to assure that the agency back here is always overseen by one of the top two. So I'm looking at some of the travel where you both are traveling the same time. And I actually have questioned our chair about our Tahiti trip. Because it's just been the practice. I don't know that it's in our bylaws or policies, but yeah, and it's the same in state departments where the directors and the deputies don't travel together because the deputy is there to take over when the director is not. So I just wondered if you considered that.
Thank you for that. And you have shared with me that same sentiment. I do want to just provide a little bit of context that there was a point in time where I was CEO, COO at the same time, and I did travel. And at that point, we had Everett Ota, who is our interim corporate counsel, and he did serve in my place when I was out. But I understand what you're saying. And, we do have other chief officers too, that we're hoping, if at any time, if I cannot be, if COO cannot be, then one of the other officers could step in.
But we have 3 officers, and during the Tahiti trip, Mona will not be here anymore. So there won't be any officer here present.
So I think that's a follow-up conversation with Chair. I think the alternative, if Chair deems it like that we should have COO, CEO go, that we would have our corporation counsel would be the officer. Which has been done before. When I was CEO, COO, when I was doing a dual role. Yeah, she was.
There was always an officer present. And that's why you folks are officers, because you hold a critical role in our office.
Okay, are we okay, everyone? All right, we're ready for the next presenter. Okay, go
Question.
ahead.
Thank you. One more follow-up question regarding international travel. So, with the thought to move it under you, I was wondering if that made sense because technically, isn't the international travel approved by the chair of the board?
International, no, I don't think so.
Yeah, Chair approves my travel, but I think what the
Specifically
cadence.
administration.
Right. So when we have delegations or again, when there's a large number of OHA employees traveling abroad or even on the continent, I think Chair's approach is we really should be understanding who's going, what is that purpose? Travel is, other than personnel, that's our biggest cost. It's a lot. And we want to make sure that if folks are traveling, there is a business purpose for it. And again, it is going to go back to our performance goals. Like we should be very focused on, if we're going someplace and want to do a staff development opportunity that's not here on island or in state, that we'd be very mindful about what it is that we're attending and why.
So is that specifically just when you're saying international travel, just specifically administrative staff?
Correct.
And it's not
Right,
BOT
correct.
or
No, no,
BOP
no, no.
staff, just the
Yeah,
administrative?
no, this is just administrative. Yep.
Go ahead.
Trustee Akaka,
Yes.
you guys have your own budget. So BOT has their own travel budget and administration.
I just wanted to make sure that there was, if there was, they asked for that change, why that was and how that works and in terms of, our overall, like how things are structured. Thank you.
All right. Are we all good? We're ready for our next our next presenter. So let's bring on our next presenter.
Chair,
Yeah,
may I ask
ahead.
that Ramona remain as
Sure.
support to our
Sure,
directors?
of course.
Thank you.
So we have our HR presentation. So let me remind you, we have 15 minutes for presentation, up to 15 minutes. And at the rate we're going with questions and so forth, it's so important that we ask them, but also be mindful. And then we're going to have dinner. I know, right? The rate we're going. So we do have 3 more presentations. Aside from HR, we have Endowment, and then we have Hawaiian Cultural Resources. All right, so are we all settled? Oh, okay. All right. Aloha Corey, welcome. And your time starts now.
All right, thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, trustees for this opportunity. My budget is pretty straightforward, as you all probably noticed. And in the essence of time, if it's all okay, if it's okay with all of you, what I'd like to do is kind of skip to page 3 of my presentation. So this is the human resources presentation. I think that all of you probably know my team, but just in case you haven't had an opportunity, I did want to just mention who is a part of the current human resources PIA. So I have 3 human resource business partners, and they are each assigned a group of PIA to support, and they support those PIAs with pretty much all of the HR needs of each of the PIAs that they're assigned to. I also have Joelle Yagi, who is our HR coordinator, and she helps us with a lot of the data collection now and data reporting, as well as helping us with completing our compliance reporting
Yeah,
needs.
hang tight.
Okay, and then we also are requesting a HR recruiter. So that would be a vacant position, and that would be to help us to improve upon our vacancies, which are currently at 37, not including the 7 new positions that are being requested for. Our vacancy rate has actually stayed pretty consistent throughout my time here. And, again, going back to Stacy's earlier statement, it's not, in my opinion, a result of a lack of recruitment efforts or trying to improve that rate. And we are putting in initiatives and programs to try and help us with improving our recruitment time, our response time to candidates, broadening the scope so that we can get a larger pool of candidates as well with some of these systems that I'm going to be talking about shortly. Okay. Next slide, please. I'm not going to go over in detail, again, just in the essence of time, but this table details out my as well as my team's kuleana with regard to not only all of you and the CEO and ELT, but also to all of the team members here at the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. And you're welcome to please take a look at those for more specific details. Next slide, please. In regards to the spending priorities, the 3 specific goals that or initiatives that we're focusing on in this biennium are going to be, our talent acquisition system, which is called NeoGov. That is also similar to the system that we had piggybacked off of for the OHA recruitment for DHERD. It similarly will enable us to not only reach the target group that we're seeking, because it's government related. So anyone who's looking for a government related job, they would see that versus what we currently have, which is Indeed, our website, and then Glassdoor. Additionally, with NeoGov, there is AI built into that system, which will help to make the screening process more efficient and more streamlined. And then it'll also help us to have a more consistent recruitment process as well. The other initiative there is implementing the Quantum, which I know we've all talked about, or we've talked about previously, and that's a performance evaluation software. And that'll again help us to not only improve and track employee performance, but also help with supporting any potential merit compensation going forward tied to our updated compensation program. And then the third point, which is regarding professional development, and not only of, and this also ties to trying to improve employee morale, help with retaining employees, creating that employer of choice work environment, right? And that would be to provide training or continue the training that we started under Stacy's leadership with trauma-informed care, workplace violence. We also want to institute a supervisor training program through the Hawaii Employers Council so that all of our supervisors are better equipped to handle and understand their kuleana with regard to employment law, in regard to supervision, employee relations. There's even some training tied to, I think, investigations, as well as some other things which will help to improve the work environment overall. There's also monies in there for professional development for myself and my team. One of the things that I found over my year here, although my team is wonderful, is that prior they were kind of specialized in their functions. And as HR business partners, they need to be able to support all of the areas of HR and need more of a generalist background. So this professional development budget would help us to get them to that point. Next slide, please. So this is our strategic alignment and key initiatives. I'm going to speak more to the last three squares there. Our key goals and objectives again this year: leadership development, also statutory compliance. That was another item that we were a little behind on when I started. And so we are now up to date, and I want to make sure that we continue being up to date with those items. And then again, stabilizing the workforce, which ties back to the professional development, agency-wide professional development, as well as the performance management platform and the NeoGov talent acquisition platform. How we're going to measure the effectiveness toward these three initiatives is to manage and track, right, the number of ER issues that we're experiencing, which will help to tell us how effective we are at stabilizing our workforce, having a lower turnover rate. We have been tracking about a mid to upper 20 vacancy rate. So trying to get that more stable and down to a more reasonable number. Resolving ER issues more timely, as well as ensuring that our systems are current and up to date, which is another challenge that we've been having over in human resources. Next slide, please. So my overall budget for the biennium is just over 2 million. And similar to Stacy, the majority of that budget is to personnel costs, which is roughly a 1.776 million. The next largest number there is our programs, which most of that budget is due to our membership in HEC as well as the SHRM memberships. And this is where the staff professional development for agency as well as for HR falls as well. That's the next largest $163,000 budget. In contrast, or another item I wanted to point out, the 70,000 in equipment. So the majority of that 70,000 budget is actually our subscriptions for the talent acquisition system, NeoGov, as well as our performance evaluation system. Those two cost about 30,000 per year in subscriptions. And usually, those are paid upfront. So we currently have a 2-year contract. We're on the 2nd year of our current contract. So next fiscal would be the beginning of the next 2 years, which is why I have the 60,000 in the FY26, but not in the FY27. The smaller balance of 4,800 is for AI related subscriptions, which we're still currently exploring. One of the challenges for us with AI subscriptions is because of the confidential nature of our work. And so we want to, vet out any potential AI software that we might consider using to make sure that, obviously we're not going to be disclosing any of that kind of information. Let's see here. Travel budget, the travel budget, what I am asking for is for 5 neighbor island travels per year. And that's mainly because of over the last, I would say, at least the time I've been here, one of the trends that we've noticed is that we're employing more people on the neighbor islands. And in some cases, especially on Molokai, because of the limited travel options, it's as well as because they're typically not employees. So it makes it a lot harder for us to pay for their initial travel to come over until they're hired. It would be easier for us to go there, right? And then we can also plan ahead as far as for arranging for flights and such. So that's the 5 neighbor island trips per year. And then we also have budgeted 2 professional development continent trips per year. And that's again to help with the professional development for myself and my team. Let's see, the other large number, the contracts, that's for our employment assistance program contract, and that's 4,000 a year. And then we have about 15,000 per year in administrative fees for our pre-tax flexible spending premium conversion costs, as well as the flex plan administration costs. Sorry, next slide, please. My apologies, trustees. It's kind of outlined here on this slide, all of the details that I just talked about for your reference. And that's basically it. I'd be happy to try and answer any questions that any of you might have.
Go ahead.
I just have I want to ask all my questions right now so I can defer to some other trustees, but Stacey, just to clarify, and I guess for all of our presenters coming up and our trustees, that the personnel costs being presented to us likely are going to change, right? Your personnel costs are based on your existing staff, their
Correct.
current staff salaries with a 5% increase and a 64.25% range.
Right.
Based on the ad hoc committee's recommendation we're going to entertain tomorrow, adopted by the board, all the personnel numbers are going to go up. And so your number for sure is going to go up. And the one additional position, correct? So
That as well as any.
if we have to look at cost savings within your budget, because personnel has gone up, what would be areas that are like absolutely critical that you need to do your work? If we had to reduce budgetary line items because of personnel and fringe.
I would say the AI subscription which is a relatively small amount, but that could probably be removed, as well as the only other section would be the professional development for my staff, because everything else is programmatic or contractual based on our benefits. I really don't have, a lot in there. I do, I'm sorry.
It's fixed cost.
Yeah, a lot of it, as far as for our operations, I do, or I would advocate that the professional development not be, removed, because again, I think that that's critical for us to stay on top of, changes in employment law, especially with the new administration, and things seem to be changing quite frequently. And again, trying to ensure that my team, further develops. I'd be happy to give up, my portion of the travel and PD. But I would ask that you please consider the PD for my staff.
Just to follow up on that, the two $30,000 line items in your budget, line 212, line 213, that references the NeoGov
Yes,
talent acquisition that's on page 21.
yes. Sorry.
Page 21, line 212 and
Yeah,
213.
so that's the subscription renewals for those two software. So without that, we would no longer be able to utilize the NeoGov or the Quantum.
Are we in the process of shifting the current OHA employment site to NeoGov?
We are, we've already technically done a lot of the configuration and implemented. We're in testing on some of it, but we've already, started moving to that. So if we decide not to continue these two platforms, then,
This is a must. We have to have these items in to finish the project.
right. And to continue utilizing that going forward.
Sure. How successful has, at least currently right now, there's a grants officer position on the state's NeoGov website.
Mhm.
How successful have we been in having that position have a higher visibility by being on the non-civil service page of the state's website?
Yeah, so we only recently received one application that cited the DHERD NeoGov platform. So we haven't had a lot, but again, I think there's a difference when we're using another agency's platform. For example, one of the limitations was that on their site, right, because it's all customized according to each
Sure.
agency's needs. So their forms are all DHERD forms. So we couldn't use their forms. We couldn't utilize the screening tools. We couldn't utilize, and then we lose the branding as well, right? Because they're just going to a DHERD website. They're not necessarily going to the OHA website. So there's definitely benefits to us having our own NeoGov platform, right? We would be able to take advantage of that AI for screening purposes. We'd be able to reach those who are looking to work for the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, as well as Native Hawaiian organization. It would also, because it's part of that NeoGov platform, it is worldwide, which is not unlike our other platforms. I mean the other two, right? Glassdoor and Indeed, but this would be more specific to, just our jobs, right? It wouldn't be mixed in with all the other jobs from all the other employers across the country.
If the trustees were able to keep this in the budget, when would we expect, when we go to OHA.org and your employment page, would we be able to see a fully functional, alive NeoGov platform where users can apply, has all the bells and whistles you want, customized to how you want it, make it as easy as possible for people to apply? When would we expect that to be fully implemented?
Realistically, I would say we're shooting for the new fiscal, but we probably will need the first quarter till the end of the first quarter.
By the end of this calendar year?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Chair.
So going to go in this order with trustee Wahehe and Galatier, and then of course trustee Lindsay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Director Corey. First, a general observation. There are high budgets for membership dues, management and team training, and conferences. Please explain the following. 21.8K for employer council and SHRM dues, 45K for trainings. There is sentiment that some of the trainings provided to staff, like trauma-informed care, are not effective or sufficient. In fact, one guy described it as trauma-inducing. When he described it to me, I thought to myself, if I went through that training, I'd probably need to see a therapist after it was over. In the distant past, I once went to one of these kind of feeling trainings, and the guy told me, you need to love yourself. And I responded, I'm not my type. My point is, these things don't work the same way for everybody. Go ahead, Corey. No, please explain.
I believe that's AI
Please explain the
generated that
following.
last part
Please
that we've
explain the
seen.
following is what I said. Jesus, 21.8K for employer council and SRM dues, and 45K for trainings. And then there was a settlement. That wasn't the question, that part.
Thank you for the questions, trustee. So the 21,800 is a agency-wide membership dues. So they base it off of payroll. That number is actually, I believe, lower than what we had in the past. Because when I got here, the membership dues that we were paying actually included individuals that were no longer with the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. So that was one of the things that we took care of, was to update the list, which was lower than the amount, and therefore had a lower payroll, and therefore, you know, the dues for the whole agency per year was lower. That being said, if we are able to achieve the 100% or 0% vacancy in FY27, that dues amount, you know, would increase as well, because again, it is tied to payroll. It will also probably go up with the adjustments based on the ad hoc review or ad hoc working groups work. As far as the membership for the HR staff, you know, that's to have national membership with SHRM, it's 300 per year, and that will allow them to utilize the resources from SHRM National, as well as you know, access other information that otherwise you cannot utilize. And that'll also help with their professional development as well. The other thing I would like to mention with regard to the HEC membership is that that membership also allows us to then have discounted rates to attend their trainings. And that would be for, again, any agency employee. And some of our employees, you know, as we're reintroducing HEC agency-wide, you know, there is a growing interest, is what I'm seeing, to go to some of these trainings. We are actually also looking at that for one of our current ER situations. But that's where those costs are from. The 45,000, you know, again, Trustee Wahehe, I cannot speak for everyone. Again, not everyone is going to necessarily appreciate training that they attend or are asked to attend or made to attend. But I will share from my personal perspective, as far as the trauma-informed care, you know, it does, in my opinion, help to broaden one's perspective. And we have had numerous, not only agency-related, but personal trauma that people have experienced and gone through. And
And there's also a recognition that our frontline workers, like our BSAs, I mean, actually, any of us who are going out into community, we have a community that is suffering from massive generational and historical trauma. And our ability to have tools in the toolbox in which we can engage, address, not everybody's happy out there. I mean, we have security outside because we have very unhappy people. And not necessarily, they're not unhappy with OHA, but we are that front-facing entity. And so being able for our staff to have the tools on understanding what is that trauma and how best to deal and so to deal with those outside of, that we're here to serve. But there's trauma that is inflicted upon many of our staff members. And I will tell you, if you sat at the reception desk and you had people who try to take over the office with physical force, it is extremely traumatic. When you have a very angry beneficiary coming in and yelling and screaming and swearing and threatening you with physical harm, it's very traumatic. And so that trauma-informed care training is more than just what is my own personal trauma. That's part of it, right? There's an awareness and an empathy, but it's much broader because of the current circumstances that our people are living.
Oh, go ahead. Hi.
Trauma-informed care with the fiscal year. I had trauma-informed care this year, so there are people here at OHA that have gotten training. So who are we training in the next 2 fiscal years? Have you identified who the most critical people are that haven't gotten training, that need the training? Do we need to spend $90,000? I think that's really the question.
Thank you for the question, Chair. So just to clarify, the 40 or the 90,000 for the 2-year period is not only for trauma-informed care. That's one of the agency-wide trainings, but it would also help cover workplace violence trainings, which also would help us to defend ourselves should we end up, for example, in some kind of litigation where a claimant were to say, well, what kind of training did you provide to your staff with regard to, this situation, right? So being able to not only educate our staff on what is appropriate, what's not appropriate, but also being able to document that we have provided these types of trainings to our staff. It would also include, as I mentioned earlier, the Hawaii Employers Council supervisor training, which I think would be of great benefit to all of our current supervisors, which they may have had prior to coming to OHA, but during my time here, we've not had anyone attend any of that type of training. And I do think that that would be critical and vital to stabilizing our workforce and becoming an employer of choice. So again, it's not only trauma-informed care training, it's all agency-wide or training for the whole agency, right? Whether it's staff, team members, and this would be separate from each of the PAIA's individual training requests that they're making.
Hi, Lama.
Aloha Chair and Kalamai trustees. I just wanted to offer a cultural lens to this too. And it is kind of mentioned, but it's really imperative to think about that we are inward and outward. And we take care of ourselves so that we can take care of others. The large group of our beneficiaries, we are part of them. And our people have faced trauma from even prior to the overthrow. We need to really be sensitive and understand, even if we are recovered from this and we feel we're strong and we're able to move forward, we must know that our people still suffer because of what happened in 1893 and even before that. If we do not understand how to recognize this thing called trauma-informed care, how can we serve our people? So I'm sad because I'm one of the planners of that trauma-informed care. I'm sad that one of our employees felt that way, but I respect that. I respect that tells me, there we go. That is a perfect example of someone we need to treat better, help better, so that we can stand together as a firm family, so that we can address our people well, to recognize that I might be on a different plane or in a different position, but we do need to help our family out in our beneficiary world.
Great, thank you so much for that. Trustee Galutaria?
Thank you, Chair. And mahalo for the robust discussion. Appreciate it. And as we take a look at your budget, we certainly appreciate its efficiency. My question, I have a curiosity to the Employee Assistance Program. The reason being the expenditure seems very minimal. And I'd like to know what the end result is, because it seems to be, there's an opportunity here to have success in the top priority of employer of choice. But I'd like to know what employee assistance means.
Oh, sorry, my apology. The Employee Assistance Program, trustee, is the Work-Life Hawaii program. So that is to offer staff. So for example, when we had the recent passing of one of our team members, right? That was to also help to offer those types of services as well. So under the current contract, each employee or family member, can utilize up to 6 visits per year with the Work-Life Hawaii team to receive counseling, to seek resources. It's confidential. So it's a way to, again, support our team members and provide them with additional options in a confidential.
Follow up. So as part of the recruitment drive, do the eligible applicants know this aspect of what they could be coming into as part of the OHA family?
If you mean, are they aware of this benefit?
Are
Yes,
they aware of the benefit? Yes.
yes.
Okay, very good. Okay, mahalo. Thank you.
Lindsay? For the chair, go ahead.
Corey, back to the employer choice kind of theme of this, at least the first 2 presentations. One of the things we're also working on is supplementing the family leave that we have offered here at OHA, something that not even a state legislature could accomplish in this legislative session, and we may be able to do it here at OHA and be the first department in the entire state of Hawaii to provide a very critical benefit to our employees. If included in this budget, and it would be administered, I would assume, in the HR budget as an additional line item, do you have the resources to execute the proposed program, which I know is in its infancy? We haven't seen it in its total proposal, but with this additional position and your current staffing, would you be able to administer that?
Thank you for the question, Chair. Without knowing more of the specifics, I can't tell you with 100% certainty. But with the recruiter position, for example, I can reallocate, right, some of the work that the current HRBPs are performing, and that may then make that possible, because it would be related to, and I would suspect similar to some of our other benefit programs, whether it be TDI or FMLA, for example. But yeah, without knowing the specifics of how that actual, policy would work.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Mahalo. Anyone else?
You know what?
Okay, I have Trustee Akaka.
Yeah. No, you know what? I have one more then. The $2,000 lay for new hires, can we look at Kapuana, including that in kind of our lay? We're looking at combining the honorarium, and I look at your budget, which combines lays and honorariums, versus Corey's budget that just has lays. Would we, you guys have both identified it under the expense description a little bit differently. Obviously it's the same thing, but if we're looking at consolidating these under admin and board of trustees? Is that something you would consider or no?
Yeah, well, so I want to just make sure that operationally, when we start consolidating, so like honorariums or even lay, does that put an undue like burden on the senior exec assistants? Are they going to have to be doing all the processing for every lay and every honorarium? Or is it just budget consolidation and they would just use charge our account?
I think you can achieve it through P cards. Because HR has a P card.
Yeah.
Everything is put into one, then does that create?
Okay, sure. Do we still do Kauinoa? Oh, it's in the event description, expense description on line 334.
Yeah, that was a note that I think it's in the generic description. And we had asked to have Kauinoa taken out as expense type.
This is just our preliminary budget, but I think when it does go final in front of the
Yeah.
committee and the
We had
board,
talked
that
about it.
it's all cleaned up.
Can you call out the number, the page number and?
Line number 334, event expense description. Lists, page number 22. It's basically the $2,000 lay for new hires.
Oh, yes.
It lists
such as.
Kauinoa. People look at our
Yep.
budgets, right?
Yep.
So if it's not something we do anymore, we should get rid of it.
Sure. Yep. Job. Thank you.
Mahalo.
Ahead.
So yeah, one more. So under the slide of under AN strategic alignment and key initiatives, in terms of recruiting, retaining, stabilizing workforce, almost every part of this stable workforce, updated systems. I'd be interested in where we can look at not just a cost analysis, but the value added and ability to recruit and retain people, and it being in alignment with our mission and our strategic plan. Is with the space that we have here, maybe we can look at a keiki tukupuna care place, because I think that is oftentimes what is a daily concern for our to-be or current employees, in terms of if a child or a loved one, their parent that they care for, if they're in a multi-generational household, that they have to rush home, or they have an activity, or there's some unforeseen matter. I personally believe that if those that learned, if that is something that we were to implement, there would be a true desire to come and work here at the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, because they would know that their loved one is present on property and that they can interact with them, but that they are in good hands. But I think that's something that a lot of people, when they're looking at a benefit, that's something that really hits close to home.
Mahalo for that, trustee. Might I ask that that we would have time to research and put a business case together
Yeah.
to cost that out? But however, we have a very short timeline. Could that be a FY27 consideration?
Yeah. Yeah, something to think about. And I guess in between, this doesn't necessarily fall under HR, but maybe it does under healthcare. But as I sit here, I would be remiss not to mention that my forehead is burning, as I'm sure others are sitting in this boardroom. And if under the operations, maybe page. Boy, there's so many pages here to try to find that page again. But there is a page in here under operations that if we can look at, some kind of procurement where we can have retractable, remote controlled shading or tinting in this boardroom and in other second floor spaces that have an exceptional amount of natural sunbeam light.
We'll make a note of that for the operations budget.
Mahalo.
No.
Any of our other trustees? Yeah, okay. So I have a really quick question, that's in regards to, you mentioned 37 positions unfilled? Okay, so, I'm gonna go back towards part of the application requirements, perhaps maybe one who has more experience, for example, or meeting the minimum requirements like an educational degree, a BA, whatever it is, versus one who has practical experience, a number of years, 10, 20 years over one, and doesn't have a degree. How is OHA, how are we able to give that person opportunity to at least warrant an interview or something? What are the practices in that respect that we can somehow maybe close the gap in, that could be part of the reason why we're not able to fulfill the positions because of a lack of a degree, for example, compared to those who've had many years of experience in the field and their background is exceptional. How do we work that in there to minimize the number of applicants that we do not have not fulfilled those positions?
Thank you, Chair, for that question. So it would really depend upon the position description. So some of our position descriptions do have equivalencies or yeah, what we would call equivalencies. So for example, if you don't have the degree, but you have, a number of years of experience, you could substitute the years of experience for the degree, typically on a 1-for-1, 1 year per 1 year of experience basis. So that would be one way, but it would need to be in the position description at the time of the posting, so that we, are being consistent in how we're applying those minimum qualifications. And that's one of the reasons why we also try to check with, or not try to, but we check with the hiring leads prior to posting whether there needs to be any updates, right? Some positions, it does make sense to have those equivalencies, and in some cases it may not. So it would depend. But that is a way of addressing that issue.
Trustee
Mahalo.
Kaka?
Thank you for that question. I think especially in this, the nature of the work that we do, especially from a cultural standpoint, the work that we have in front of us and the positions that are fulfilling that need, oftentimes it's not credited by that pala. I truly believe it's something you're born into. It's something that it just happened to be that that's what you came into, that position in life where that's just what you do. And I think that that needs to be valued. And oftentimes a degree, there's really no degree for that. It's not created yet, or it might not ever be. There's just in our olden days, there was that understanding and training. But I think that there's ways in which that we can have that written in, like you're saying, so that it can match up, and then that their what they are receiving in terms of their salary will match that as well, and not be penalized for not having a degree. But that acknowledging that formal training does exist. Thank you.
Are we going to move on to our next presenter? And this is going to be for the Endowment Department. Mahalo, Corey. Aloha, Ryan.
Aloha. May I start?
Yes, go ahead.
Aloha, mahalo for your time today. The briefing outlines the proposed biennium budget for the Native Hawaiian Trust Fund's Internal Investment Office. I'm going to walk through what we're proposing the structure and how it's aligned with OHA's mission and how the budget compares to similar sized institutions. Next page. The overview, which is the second page, right? No,
It's the PowerPoint.
the endowment PowerPoint. There we go. Thank you. So in terms of the endowment, just a high level overview. The division manages and oversees the Endowment Trust Fund, the investment portfolio, and serves as the link between OHA's Endowment Trust Fund and operating accounts. So in terms of alignment to Mimo strategies, it's strategy 9. Steward financial commercial resources to enable strategic outcomes. Next page. This slide covers the organization structure. The internal investment organization structure seeks to align with best practices for similarly sized institutions. We currently have one position of myself, the endowment director, and requesting the addition of one investment analyst position that would report to me. Now, the endowment director reports directly to Kapuana, and we also share an executive assistant as administrative resource. Now, this brings us to a 2-person internal team, supported by external advisors as needed to form this hybrid model. Next page. So this slide covers the core responsibilities, what you can expect from an investment office. At the highest level, the investment office is responsible for implementing the investment policies approved by the trustees for the Native Hawaiian Trust Fund. It ensures that the trust assets are effectively managed transparently and in line with its long-term goals. Next page. Now, in an attempt to address the question, how much an investment office cost, right? So this slide tries to address that question. Are we spending too little or are we spending too much? As a reminder, the Native Hawaiian Trust Fund is transitioned from a manager structure to a trustee-directed advisor support structure. This is the recommended structure that was proposed by the board advisor back in fall. The direction improves OHA's ability to enhance long-term returns, reduce fees and inefficiencies, and also align investors more directly with OHA's mission. Now, in terms of this chart here, just to lay it out, this was a study done by a national renowned investment consultant. It examines the expenses relating to investment oversight. It typically represents oversight costs categorized by portfolio size. So when you look at the top, it's the size of the portfolio, the pool. So it starts from 20 billion in terms of large assets under management to the right, which is 100 million. What you have on the left is referenced by the expense as referenced by basis points. As a reminder, 100 basis points equals 1%. So 0.2 is 0.2%, right? So what this shows is that if you're in the green zone, you're spending too little. If you're in the orange, you're spending too much. So a reasonable range would be in sort of the blue area, right? So just as reference, since there's no 600 million column, we're going to be conservative and look at the 500 million column. It's just right under expenses. So for a program that has about 500 million assets, the reasonable cost would be about 1 to 2 million range, which equates to about 20 to 40 basis points. Next page. Now, in terms of spending priorities for the Native Hawaiian Trust Fund, it's all about the investment office build out. As endowment director, I'm currently leading this transition, and we are proposing to add investment analyst to support research, reporting, and operations. And to accelerate implementation of the investments transition, we plan to bring on external advisors, both a general consultant and a private market advisor, as an extension of staff. Now, these roles will be mainly to support asset allocation studies, manager sourcing, diligence, while internal capacity is being built out. Now, we are also investing in core systems and analytics. I think Stacy mentioned the technology piece, as well as our custodial bank will continue to provide asset safekeeping, trade support, and cash reporting. Finally, we're also including a budget for four annual due diligence manager trips and one conference within the travel budget. Next page. So this slide shows how the endowment divisions work aligned with OHA's mission, our strategic goals, and how we measure long-term success. So our goals are to really sustain funding for programs to preserve and grow the trust assets and uphold intergenerational equity into perpetuity. This year's key focus is really building out the investment office. Talked about staffing, technology, advisor engagement, and major initiative. This is an ongoing, it never ends. It's really to improve the long-term returns of the Native Hawaiian Trust Fund. So the initiatives that we have is to review our asset allocation. We want to make sure our investments align with our spending goals as well. I think Stacy mentioned, Hawaii inflation is very different from national inflation. So we need to account for that in building our portfolio. At the same time, we're way behind on our private market allocation. We need to execute our long-term private market commitments. With the end goal of building a roster of top-performing external investment managers across asset classes. So how do we measure success? Really, it's the rolling 10 years. I mean, this is a long-term, portfolio investments as a perpetual trust. It's basically achieving our long-term targets, right? Growing the trust fund after spending above Hawaiian inflation, and also increasing the level of spending over time. Next page. Now, the investment office budget request, it's 1.9 million for the 2 years. Fiscal 26, it's 974,000. Fiscal year 27, it's approximately 1,020,000. This equates to about 16 basis points of the Native Hawaiian Trust market value. And it's important to note that funding for these expenses comes directly from the Native Hawaiian Trust Fund as an investment expense, not from the core budget, except for travel, right? So the budget covers 4 main areas. It's personnel, contracts, equipment, travel, with the contract making the majority of the budget. Next slide. I mean, this slide highlights the new initiatives, especially the ones highlighted in blue, right? These will be the focus areas for 26 and 27. As mentioned, it's really adding more resources, leveraging external resources such as general investment consulting and private markets, and additional investment manager research database. Next page. So this is more of a breakout comparing previous 24-25 budget versus 26 and 27. So you can compare the two. The line that I would focus on would be the bottom line, which is a percentage of the budget expense, a percentage of Native Hawaiian Trust Fund assets. That would be the last bottom row, market value of Native Hawaiian Trust Fund. And you have the budget expenses as a percentage of the Native Hawaiian Trust Fund. There we go. There you go. So when you look at 24-25, we're underspending. It's about 8 basis points to manage the assets. And this doesn't account for the change moving from a manager structure, which has its own expenses that is not sort of embedded. And typically those type of structures would range from 25 to 60 basis points of cost. So for fiscal year 26 and 27, we see an increase from 8 basis points to 16 basis points. So it's a double, but we're coming from a very low base, right? So next page. So to bring it back, the original market data in terms of reasonable expenses at 16 basis points, we're within the lower end of the reasonable range of similar size institutions, right? And again, just a reminder, as mentioned, it's also more cost effective than a manager structure that could be in a range of 30 to 60 basis points. I want to end here, or, just open up to questions.
Okay, go ahead, John.
Thank you. Ryan, are we expected to be fully weaned from the managers within the biennial period?
Yes, with the added resources, it allows us to move in a good pace.
And the budget for the private market consultant, what's up, what the salary would be for that position?
No, that'll be separate, it's done the contracts, right?
Okay, but the number was what we were gonna pay
So if you
them.
go back to, just on page numbers, there was a table, right, with all the expenses comparing 24, 25, 26, and 27.
It's the budget request.
It's the budget request page. So what's outlined there in terms of personnel fringe, the additional staff would be included in that line item.
Okay, and this might be a dumb question, but because I wasn't paying attention well during that part, but there was one part where you had a budget and it said one trip for one conference. That wasn't for the entire department. I mean, you're not planning to just have one.
No.
Trip to
So
one
I think
conference.
we're talking about actually 5 trips,
Oh.
right? So 4 would be for ongoing sourcing new managers as well as monitoring existing, and an additional 1 would be for conferences.
I just thought that was
So total of 5.
that was like very low.
It is low, but I think in terms of just the pacing and leveraging additional resources using Zoom, I think that's a reasonable amount for now.
Go ahead, trustee Souza.
Madam Chair, Ryan, with the one added position for now, is that adequate, or in the long term, would we see you asking for more? I mean, to build out the team. The reason why I asked is our board consultant at the time, VJoy, did mention that we need to help you build out your team, and that was one thing that he wanted to make sure. So is that one position okay for now? You anticipate?
It would be okay for now. I think if you go back to the market data, right? So if you're at, for example, 1 billion, you probably would have 5 to 6 people.
Okay.
At 10 billion, at my former institution, we had 15 people.
Okay.
Right. So we have to scale based on the assets that we have.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
We're gonna get there soon to the billion. We have a big team. Right. Trustee Kaka, did you have a question?
Mahalo. In that additional position, I was very happy to see that, given that that was one of the big takeaways that we received at that personal meeting we had with the Common Fund advisors. So I'm glad to see it in there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Go ahead.
It's a bit of a loaded question because you cannot see the future, and the federal landscape is kind of iffy kind of for the next 3 years, I'd say. But our portfolio, our market value of the trust fund is almost $600 million. What is, if it continued on its current trajectory, how and when do you suppose, and you're looking into the crystal ball, $1 billion. When can we get to $1 billion in this particular trust fund? Given the current atmosphere, and do we go bold? Do we stay cautious? And what would be your suggestion?
Well, when we model what it would take to get a billion, I believe it would be in terms of the current allocation, meaning our current asset allocation. I believe it was going to take close to about 10, 12 years based on the current spending, right? I think given the current administration, just to answer that question, I think there's going to be a lot more volatility, but the path of returns are still going to be, you still are able to achieve that path of return. Just going to there's gonna be a lot more volatility, to generate those returns. And the good thing is this is a perpetual trust. I think one of the, I guess, superpowers of OHA is that it is perpetual. It's a long-term investor, right? So if you can stomach that volatility, you're able to benefit and able to take advantage of it to generate the returns that you need.
I guess two-part question, but the personnel one, since we've talked about that, is that, investment analyst position, like you've written a position description for it, it's ready to go, we fund it, you can have this person in place relatively quickly?
It's being worked on. It will take a couple of weeks to actually get it posted.
Okay. And then the second question is, I'm sorry if I'm not following it, but you know, when I'm looking at, where your budget starts on page 24 and referencing your, I guess it's the second to the last page before you get to here. So your contracts, the 1 million in total contracts, yeah, 532, 558 for FY 26-27, for a total of $1,091,156. Does that come from the trust fund or the Native Hawaiian Trust Fund?
Native Hawaiian Trust Fund,
Native Hawaiian Trust Fund.
correct. Native Hawaiian, but it's one the same.
So where's that breakdown in this budget?
It's in the sheet here. Are you referring to this budget
Yeah,
here?
this.
It's not. It's
Why
not.
wouldn't it be?
I think for the contracts. It's not. Right, it's investment related.
So, only the salaries are reflected in this budget.
Yeah, I
And
see
it,
that.
yeah,
Page 2. But why wouldn't
Yeah.
we break down and just color code it dark gray in your budget?
Yes, that's a discussion that we talked about, and that's why we're highlighting it here in terms of what expenses are being netted out, right, of the trust fund returns as part of the expenses. So I think on a go-forward basis, we can also include that as part of it.
So maybe when we look at bringing the budget back June 2nd, we could look at adding that in and just keeping it dark gray, right? It doesn't affect our trust fund core total, but it adds more fidelity and detail for the trustees of exactly what you, yeah,
Correct.
want on here versus that.
I agree.
Okay. Thanks, Chair.
Very much.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. And we'd like to bring our last presenter for Hawaiian Cultural Resources, Ailama. Here we go.
Velina ke aloha kako e naka huwaiwai. Waho i ke o Hailama Farden. And happy to be here with you this afternoon. Thank you for your patience. Call up my slide presentation. Much of which you can notice our slideshows have kind of been, our slide presentations have been similar so that you kind of now know where to look for certain things. So I'm probably going to move forward on more of the contextual items, which I know you can look at. And if you have questions, you can stop me there so that we can hit the main budget points and questions that you may have for me. So as soon as my slides come up, we can move forward. And I might go ahead and just begin just
ahead.
the first overview page, which will pop up as soon as we can. So the focus and the division, purpose, function, responsibility to perpetuate, elevate, and empower Hawaiian cultural knowledge, practices, and values for present and future generations. And again, I'll say what I said a little bit earlier, and it's really, we're internally and externally focused, which means we take care of all of our cultural resources and perspectives here, that context, the Lavena and the mores, as well as being able to amplify that into our community and support our community work through many other efforts. Alignment to OHA's mandate and HRS Chapter 1010H. So I'll just skip to the part where it says protecting, perpetuating Native Hawaiian culture and heritage. So through the programs, research, and protocol development. Improving conditions of for Native Hawaiians via supporting grant requests, giving that cultural lens. And I've already been engaged to help look through some of this already. So grant request, practitioner support, cultural leadership development, delivering direct benefit to the community through cultural events, partnerships, youth-focused initiatives, advocating for stewardship of cultural resources and sacred sites. So for example, some of the work we're doing in engagement at Tapu Tapu Atea coming up in July, work that we've continuously worked on, Mauna Ala, Kukaniloko, and actually other places that we have land interest in, including Waimea that we've heard the presentation this morning. Ensuring cultural education for future generations, aligning with OHA strategic priorities. The budget also upholds fiscal accountability and alignment with Manai Mauliola, consistent with HRS 10H. The next page, alignment to Manai Mauliola strategic priorities. I think if I can summarize by saying major hit is strategy 4, and I spell it out here on this slide, and I'm sure you folks are familiar with that. So I'm going to move on.
Yep.
We all provided you a little org structure. So of course I report to our Pohana. There I am. And then we are in the process of hiring a director of Hawaiian Ethos. We discussed that with the board here. And then of course I have the privilege of working with Executive Assistant Lawa'i Clayton. All right. I think I'm going to stay to the left column if you're looking directly at it. And the breakdowns are in the other two, which I know you folks can reflect on. And because I'm doing this, if you have any questions or thoughts, you can always email me directly or call me, and we can talk over some of these. Again, this is more contextual before we jump into the budget.
Okay.
So area of responsibilities, cultural strategy alignment, protocol, ceremonial leadership. Remember, almost all of you have involved working with on that. Protection of iwi kupuna sacred sites, cultural expertise and advising, community engagement and advocacy, language revitalization and education, intergenerational knowledge, and we're talking ike kupuna, transfer, international cultural relations. Moana Nui Akea is our continent. Our continent is Moana Nui Akea. Cultural resource management, metrics, impact, and reporting, and I'll even go into that a little bit more because I know that is a question that we received from you trustees, and I appreciate that you took the time to presenting us some questions that we're able to reflect on prior to this. Goals and objectives. I've been able to connect the kuleana of the Hawaiian Cultural Affairs Office, or PAIA, with the 4 areas. So employer of choice, process infrastructure improvement, executing transformational program services, and aligned OHA's mandate in Chapter 10H. And that is because I strongly believe that we have a cultural lens, and the way we see things should be through a cultural lens. I call it out to say we center Ohana mo meheu, our culture, Aina. These are our 3 foundational areas, our foundational goals for the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. In every initiative, ensuring that our spending advances ancestral wisdom, strengthens Lahui identity, and connects community to Aina and Ohana. Our work operationalizes strategy 4 of Manai Mauliola by embedding cultural excellence, stewardship, and restoration into all program areas. Culture can never be an amendment, an addendum, an enhancement, or a coincidence. Culture must drive OHA strategies, our work and engagement. Culture should be held as important, and I know we do so, as important as how we view our obligations to employment, finance, strategies, especially because OHA is a Native Hawaiian and a Native Hawaiian serving organization. So my goals and objectives, the 4 that I present here: cultural revitalization and leadership. So expand Hawaiian language and cultural programs for youth and Ohana, internally, externally. This doesn't mean we'll be able to completely do this in 2026. It means at least we can begin planting the seeds. Develop cultural leadership training and mentorship programs. Even the training like we spoke of, trauma-informed care. I'm there to make sure that a cultural lens is, or we're seeing and approaching these things, these trainings with cultural lenses. Strengthen partnerships with our Ali'i Trust, Royal Societies and Civic Clubs. And Trustee Akaka, I appreciate your comment earlier about we being a staple working in partnership with the association and the Hawaiian Royal Societies. With civic engagement, we can do the work, or we can also recognize the different Ali'i Trust organizations that are doing it and say, we can support you because you're doing what physically we may not be able to do right now. And maybe it's through finance, maybe it's through an MOA, maybe it's through something similar to that. Stewardship and repatriation, advance Mauna Ala stewardship, transition planning, the work that we've been doing a long time and we'll continue to do. We're looking forward to that working group set up by our senator, that should be coming soon. Senator Richard, yes. Expand EV kupuna and patrimonial artifact repatriation efforts. Enhance stewardship of cultural sites, landscapes, and practices. For number 3, capacity infrastructure building. Implement Hawaiian cultural competency training for, we kind of started it. And that includes the PICO that we work on Mondays and Fridays called Kaukalai Kalolo. And although our participation Ohana is kind of waning, we're still there. And we encourage you all to be there. And even if it's once in a while, it's one form. But we've had great compliments from some of our employees who've said, I've been able to use what I've learned and apply it when I've been asked to do something. And that becomes real when it's implemented. Improve grants management, engagement with a cultural lens. Event delivery, tracking systems, build operational tools to integrate cultural standards across our OHA programs. And 4, international community engagement. Lead Hawaii's presence at Moana Nui Akea Pacific gatherings. You know, it's one thing to participate, and it's another to lead. And I feel OHA is the right organization to be leading. And when our other brother and sister organizations like Kamehameha School are leading, we can ask to co-lead. And then there's time where we humbly do say, we will participate as you lead. But we have to be present, and in many times, we must lead. Expand cultural diplomacy with Pacific Indigenous partners. There's so much going on right now, especially with national, international recognition. Folks of other nations, including Vanuatu and others, are ready to recognize Hawaii. Recognize the illegal armed invasion that happened here. Recognize that OHA is the great steward to help to carry self-determination forward. There's so much going on, and especially our family in Aotearoa and others. And host annual Hawaiian Cultural Affairs Summit of Somehow. Just know that I'm working right now to co-brand with Kahulileolea the first ever Haku Mele workshop in June of this year. I'm working with finance to help me. Chris has been so good to help me how to do this properly. And so there's so many things coming down the line that we're trying to work on. Our next slide, strategy alignment, key initiatives. How to work in sport, how our work supports MIMO, Mane Mauliola. Advanced strategy 4, as I mentioned before, Hawaiian culture and language and identity. Increase stewardship of Aina, cultural sites and resources. Strengthen Lahui well-being through cultural revitalization, leadership, and intergenerational, that Ike Kupuna of which I spoke earlier, knowledge transfer. Our key goals, objectives this year: expand Hawaiian language and culture programming, advance Mauna Ala stewardship transition, EV Kupuna repatriation, develop cultural competency training for OHA staff, strengthen community and global indigenous partnerships. For our major programs, projects, and initiative, Mauna Ala stewardship, EV Kupuna, Hawaiian language and cultural competency trainings, Papa Kilo database archive expansion with audiobooks. And I know some of you probably have questions on that. I'll share that in just a moment. International diplomacy, I already mentioned, Tapu Tapu Atea, Moana Nui Akea engagement. This was a question you asked us as trustees, how we measure success. These are just a few ways. Number of cultural program and events, that's an easy one. And the grants delivered or financial support, even sponsorships through that. Community practitioner and staff participation. Progress on stewardship, repatriation, and international milestones. Staff cultural competency completion rates. That's self-explanatory. Strengthen partnerships and increase cultural impact. Okay, here's where your questions will begin. I think the personal total is one of those grayed out areas. It's given to me. This is what I provide. You can see there, the blue is the combination of 2026 and 2027, and the breakdown is below. So you can see the figures there. Overhead costs, contracts, that's one I'm willing to explain in a moment because you may have seen it and it looks quite high. Equipment, and then programs are below it. And travel, trustees, I've heard your comments regarding travels and consolidation. So just know that CEO and I are discussing because it's not only the travel, but it's the makana that you talked about that we need to make sure we properly have consolidated. Let's see. I think the same is broken down on the next page. Definitions. Next page, please. Although I think you all have it in front of you so you can see it too. So here are the explanations. If I can just step away and grab something I wanted to share with you. I feel passionate about our cultural connection to our Aina. And in the whole process, the entire process that I've been asked to give information regarding Mauna Ala as we were seeking stewardship of Mauna Ala, I realized that there's so much information buried in our Hawaiian language newspapers. There's so much information that's buried in the different agencies. Some we have personally, some I might have, but it is so imperative, I think, that we look for this wisdom that our kupuna have placed in these strategic and important places, especially the Hawaiian language newspapers. If that were my only job, I could focus on that and provide a great report of an important perspective on what the value of Mauna Ala is to all of our people. And do the same for Kukani Loko, and do the same for Waimea, or do the same for any of the places for which we have responsibility or we may consider having responsibility. So when you see on my contracts, the high total, specifically looking at, I'm targeting focusing information on Mauna Ala. When I worked at Kamehameha schools, I engaged with an organization that we hired, and the amount that I put here is based on this unabridged survey of Kona Oahu. And I would like this to do the same thing for places like Mauna Ala, for places like Kukani Loko. They're beautiful chants, mele, stories, as well as information and letters that are in our Hawaiian language newspaper. I'm seeking to contract an organization similar to the one that we contracted, which was Noho Papa here, to conduct these cultural surveys. And the cost that I put here is how much it cost me to conduct this survey. And I'm very impressed. I still use this for reference. But to be able to pull the mele are perspective pictures that we today have videos that are able to share. So one looking at this and seeing a figure of 45,000 or so per year, you might think this is ridiculous, it's crazy. But the work that goes into the teamwork that you have to pay the actual team to put this together is reasonable. And I feel we should put money to doing something like this so that we have the full unabridged information. I realized that it was a beep. My time is up.
Okay,
And I can go for questions. I'm
right,
prepared
so,
for them.
Trustee Kaka has to leave, so I'm going to defer to her first. Ask your question. Oh, she don't have to leave, but, okay.
Oh, I turn off my.
Mahalo. Mahalo. I feel that just alone on this AI page with the strategic alignment and key initiatives, the things that are goals, what's happening and what's planned to be, this alone, if you were to go on a goodwill tour and be the ambassador for OHA, this alone would, I think, receive high marks from our community in terms of answering the question on why does OHA exist? What do we do? How do we uplift our people? This alone, I think, says so much. And of course, we're not limited to this, but from a cultural standpoint, I think this is very, very important for us to be able to share this within our community. I also want to mahalo you. I don't know if everyone is aware of this, but Hailama has been working on what was talked about, the seal. Maybe you can kind of share a little on how you are creating that and the importance and the value and majesty of it.
Yeah, thank you. It actually became something fun because what I got to do is look at the perspective, and I took into this perspective why all the seals were made.
Mhm.
And I was flabbergasted to think, as a cultural person, that I didn't even realize the Statue of Liberty or Lady Liberty is on the state seal. In my mind, I thought it's still Kamanawa Kame'e Yamoku standing there. And they're not. And then I went back to look how far back they were removed. These two great chiefs. Now, it doesn't mean I would propose that the two great chiefs are still there because they belong to our kingdom seal. But I also recognize the importance of the first mo'i, the first king who unified our kingdom. And even, and I don't want to say it in this perspective, our last mo'i, because she may be the last in the perspective of that kingdom, but she's also a very symbol of today's. I mean, we think of our queen as if she's alive today because of the legacies. And all of our ali, we may be thinking the same. But I thought two of them as pillars. Our Kame'eya Moku and Kamanawa stand on this mythical plank. I have been trying to do research to find exactly what they are standing on. I don't know. And I'm going to find out, probably because I'm asking this question now, somebody knows is going to tell me. But I actually imagine the Pai Pai Kapua Liloa on which they would stand. Pai Pai Kapua Liloa, all of us have the ability to see. It's right in front of the Kanaina building, in front of the rock that's dedicated to Captain Cook. Pai Pai Kapua Liloa was the threshold stone in Waipio that you walked over to enter the kapu of the heiau. And I thought, there's a good symbolism. I thought of, I don't know if you know in the seal, there's banana leaves. There's certain other things. The why it's there is not clear. Although banana is important to us, maya is important to us, I also think of kalo immediately. I think of other ulu, other important, I think, symbolic plants that should be represented. So some of this is there. Definitely around the seal, there would be that cord, that aha, that has always been important to our ali'i. That if you looked in the treasury of Kalakaua or even ali'i before, in that treasury they had a spool of aha. And though that aha was created with their birth, in chant. That aha was grown out and strengthened out. And when they became the ruling chief, it was stretched across their compound. In a mystical manner, when a chief of a higher rank walked into this compound, the aha between the two alai or pulo'ulo'u would fall, telling you this chief was higher than you. And yet, in death, that aha was even more sacred, because the bones of our ali'i were then taken and wrapped in this aha to make their ka'ai. So I felt that needed to be around the seal. And there's a little bit more, but that's where I'm heading to.
Mahalo.
And we're ready to actually go out and seek contract for someone to actually draw it or sketch it out for us.
And so this similar rendering, or I want to try to find the proper way to describe it, but would this seal then be what would be used on the flag as well as the pin?
Yeah.
Okay.
I like the OHA flag idea.
Thank
that's
you.
Good.
Thank you. Well,
Letterhead,
so
especially, yeah.
as we were in this most recent Onipa'a March, when we were walking down the road of Nu'uanu, and I was looking at the majesty of our Hawaii, and again in the Mary Monarch Royal Parade, it really struck me. There was a feeling that really was pulled from within me, and I thought, wow, the beautiful grand flag, and wouldn't it be so nice for us to have an official OHA flag, something with dignity and something that can be recognized through the years. On top of that, I feel that with the specific work that you do, I feel that you're stretched so very thin. It's like there needs to be like 2, 3, 4 of you sometimes. I feel like maybe this team is not large enough. Like when I think of my father's team, it went from him to a team of 2 to a team of eventually 4. So
I appreciate that sentiment. We are in process of hiring one director under me, and then there's another position, more like a project manager that would report to that director. And there's some other things in the work that we're planning.
yeah.
And I've been bugging Pohana, but I know let's eat the food in front of us first. And then I can go look to something else and come back to the trustees and say, here's where we need some more help.
I think because a lot of what you do, it's something that there needs to be that room for that mentorship if you feel comfortable with that,
Mhm.
to prepare those that are going to support you, and then in time do. Yeah,
Of
it's
course,
the
yeah.
succession there. So, and then that also then leads me to the last thing that I wanted to ask about. I know during our ad hoc cultural protocols and practices meetings, we had talked about, I was asking about having the board all having a uniform lehulu,
Mhm.
something that maybe would beautifully stand out tastefully, but one that we all have the same, because we have the opportunity to wear the ones that we receive for an investitures. However, it's not all
Mhm.
the same. So I think for ceremonial purposes or certain events like Festpac, or when we do talanoas and
Mhm.
we meet with the traditional leaders, that would be a good uniform for us to have.
Identity.
We've been wanting something uniform, like when we do events together. So I think that's a great suggestion,
Yeah.
Kale.
That can be woven somehow into the budget.
That's what you say?
Yeah. Mahalo, Anui.
Okay.
I have these beautiful
Trustee
kahinis
Souza?
next to me, and they're hearing what you say too.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead. Thank you so much, Trustee Souza, then Galutaria.
All right, Mahalo, Madam Chair. Aloha, yeah, hai lama. I just want to make sure, I know under the structure, you have, access basically to one of the senior executive assistants. Just want to make sure that Stacy's budget for personnel and your budget is not. Does your
It shouldn't
budget-
duplicate that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not duplicated, correct?
No.
Okay.
The personnel costs for the 2 admin assistants
That's
are
under
with
you.
me.
That's on, okay, I just want to clarify that. And also, between fiscal year 26 and fiscal year 27 is substantially higher, the personnel budget. Is that for another position? Is that-
Because
Yeah.
it's anticipating the creation of that third position. I told you about that project
Okay.
manager position, because that one isn't even in the works. That's gonna come shortly after.
Okay, no, that's my only questions. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead. Trustee Galutaria.
Oh, Chair. Alama, mahalo for your good work. Protocol is important. I want to hit some ground game. This is the only government that we're a part of, right? And until we get to our reorganized Native Hawaiian governing entity, this is the one we're going to be dealing with.
Mhm.
So with regard to Hawaiian ethos, and I want to submit this for your consideration because your bandwidth is not full on yet,
Mhm. Mhm.
but when it gets there,
Mhm.
we got between 10, 15 departments in our bureaucracy, right? Hawaiian ethos. If we were to take our little silo of Hawaiian ethos and instead of being a vertical silo, we turn it to a horizontal silo so that we investigate Hawaiian ethos in every department of the state of Hawaii. What do you suppose would come out with? It would be very deficient, don't you think?
Absolutely.
Okay, so the question would be to identify a lack of Hawaiian ethos in our very state government, I think is a very important part of what you're going to be doing. Because going forward, we're going to embed Hawaiian ethos, if we're successful, in every part of the living experience of our Hawaii. And that's not only Native Hawaiian. That's like all of Hawaii.
Well, trustee, I think that charge is very clear in our own Hawaii revised statutes. You know, in some way, it's not that OHA is going to be rude, but I think we should be very bold to call out our state agencies who are neglectful to their obligations to culture, to Hawaiian ethos. And we have to be bold because we're charged by law to do this. And I think That's, I mean, that's my understanding. When Kapohana hired me, these were some of the discussions we had. And it was through her that she indoctrinated us, and she continues to do, in Hawaii Revised Statute, as well as our own laws, because then it gives us the charge of why we're doing what we're doing. And specifically with regards to the neglect of not only our state, I mean, it's because of the state, everything. You can look at the Department of Education where it lacks. And now you hear a community calling out for some of these changes. OHA should be leading these concerns and calling out in the strategic civic engagement, even if we have to respectfully go to court in some places for these.
Yes, and just leave me with this, let me leave you with this, the thought of ATM machines in Hawaiian,
Mhm,
the thought of announcements at the airport in Hawaiian.
mhm.
Where do we place the culture without people even knowing about it? I mean, it just
That's right.
happens to show up. That is our charge.
That's
too,
right.
you know.
I once, just to summarize this, and you can amplify it to many other levels. I did a commercial that appears every night at about 10:15 at night on CBS or Channel 9 or whatever channel that is. And it's about sexual abuse. So they asked me to translate it into Hawaiian. And there was this whole back and forth about, should we translate everything into Hawaiian? And sometimes being there, being bold, you can see the context of what's going on. So I think Monday it's in English, Tuesday it's in Hawaiian, Wednesday it's in English, and it goes that way. So you're able to see. So that's just a subtle way to make signage other places, to have signs around that are in dual language, or dual languages. I think that's starting. And however OHA is able to support that.
As an example, the Department of Transportation is starting to put the signage in Hawaiian and English as part of it. That's part of OHA's job to be, not the policeman, but at least to be supportive of that, you know. Yeah, could be. Okay, thank you.
Okay, mahalo. Any more questions? Trustee Lindsay?
I just wanted to piggyback on trustee Galataria in that OHA pays for the training at the University of Hawaii in Hawaiian Studies and within their legal group to teach all of the legislators, all of the cabinet of the governor, county councils, county councilmen, you know, and even the departments on the county levels. We teach them the Hawaiian rights. And that's
Oh,
what
yeah,
he
yeah.
suggested should be encompassed in this training so that it's a bigger picture and cover what, let's say, what he's concerned about. And we can do that by somebody from our administration talking story with UH and just building out their presentation a little bit more.
Mm.
So I would suggest that for our administration.
Well, we can, yeah, definitely.
Great, mahalo. Trustee Souza?
Hello, Mo. Is there like an opportunity for OHA's internal team to support potentially contracted services like the audio books and the
Yeah.
books that we talked about? Do we have the capacity in research or?
Well, I think within ourselves, I don't think we have the capacity at this point, but I'm so happy you asked about the audiobooks. Somebody asked me about it. So if I can stretch now, since you asked, I want to show you some of these great masterpieces. Part of unveiling and opening a present in culture is taking the information of our kupuna, the wisdom, our ike kupuna. And I selected some items that I would like to target. Now, know that I don't know how to make something an audiobook, but I've been researching. I've been trying to look at what we can do. So I look at some of these books that are out of print. This is Hemo'olelo Pokole. It's about Queen Kapiolani's travel in 1887, completely in Hawaiian. So we want to expand the Hawaiian language ability. I will admit that if I were to read something, it takes me 3 times to read what it might take you once to comprehend. But when I can hear it, I'm a fan of audiobooks. So I'm thinking of those folks who are not going to read Hawaii Story by Hawaii's Queen. It's on audiobook. But I thought we could do this and we control it so that they're not using speakers whose Hawaiian language is horrible. But we get the speakers. He puke mo'olelo, Honorable Joseph Nawahi, tell his story in audiobook. and of course, get the permission. Auntie Sarah Nakoa's own stories, Le Momio Eva. Puakia worked so hard with Avayaulu on Hi'iaka I Kupolio Pele. I would love to hear this in audiobook. Dr. Hiapo Pereira's Mo'olelo Cavelo, and many, many others. These are ones I want to target. And I want to make it so that if we can load these onto Papakilo even, to make them allow people to be able to connect to, and our schools to use these as not just only textbooks that they have to find if they're out of print, but then they'd be able to have them as audiobooks. So I thought, that's where I was thinking. It's a little out of the box.
Appreciate that. Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Sorry, one more question. Also, I wanted to touch on the 45,000 for Mauna Ala as well as Kukani Local. OHA did, this board actually did approve a budget for due diligence phase 2 for certain land transfers. And on Mauna Ala, we didn't allocate about 100,000 because I would think that was top priority at that point. Would this be considered a due diligence process?
I think we could be, yes, absolutely.
Okay,
So it
well,
could have been covered then.
If it is, then I would suggest that we bring it to the item committee and we'll go through the process as far as the budget for
Oh,
that.
I like
I mean, I'll just make a suggestion on that because the board did approve the other processes we followed through on.
I think the question that I'm thinking about is this an ethnographical type research versus, I think the due diligence is more about, I think it's more technical in nature, but maybe I'm not,
This would be anticipation of a potential land transfer. right?
could be,
So
yes.
we'd be gathering as much information.
Yeah.
And to potentially present to the ledge or like Senator Tim Richards.
Yes,
Right,
yes,
and so I
Could,
think that would be
for sure.
a part of that process.
Part of
I
it,
mean,
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Absolutely.
Because I don't want to put all our resources into something that's potentially not going to happen
Mm.
if it's not, right? We want word that, hey, we're going to start collaborating on this potential land transfer and then use our resources. If it's not priority at this time, I would rather expend those resources elsewhere, personally.
So I just want to make
But
sure
I do agree with gathering the history and documenting everything, but maybe.
it's
if
part of that
it's part of that
process.
process.
Got it.
yeah.
Okay, mahalo.
We could potentially allocate more if
Mm.
more is needed, right, to get the most information out of it.
Okay, we are coming down to the wire here. Any more questions before we adjourn? All right, I'd like to make a really quick announcement. I'd like to recognize our beneficiaries who sat through, 6 hours, it seemed like. Thank you so much. You guys are so patient, and yes, give a round of applause for, thank you again. I hope you guys learned something and seeing how, this is their first time, by the way, and their family. How's that one from Hau'ula? How are you going? From North Shore so thank you so much for coming out here and hanging out with us. Truly appreciate you. And I'm so glad you get a chance to learn about how the money goes here in OHA and all the different areas of which we are responsible for. So you can honestly see how this all works. And so that at the end of the day, it's all about you folks and how we serve you. Thank you again for joining us.
Madam
Can I have a
Chair,
motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
All right, second. Okay, roll call, please. Oh.
Second and I, yes.
Yes, it is 9, right? Mike. Use the mic. Yes, she said, no worries. All right, go ahead with the roll call. So tomorrow morning, we start at 9 a.m., not 10, 9 a.m. Okay, roll call, please.
Trustee Ahuna,
Aye.
Trustee Akaka,
Aye.
Trustee Galutaria,
Aye.
Trustee Kahele has departed, Trustee Lindsay,
Aye.
Trustee Souza, Vice Chair Waihe'e. Oh. Chair Lapa. Meeting is adjourned.
Mahalo, everyone.